Hey everyone, I'm Corey Puffett, and welcome to episode 268 of the Sports Ballers podcast. We're 2 weeks into the NFL playoffs, which means we're heading toward a pair of conference championship showdowns that will decide the matchup for Super Bowl 58. We're a little early this week, and we're still picking based on Wednesday afternoon lines, so we won't make official picks today, but we'll tell you what to expect from my Lions, Evan's Ravens, and the two teams that faced off in Super Bowl 54 just weeks before the world shut down. Stay tuned for all of that and more next on the Sports Ballers podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 268 of the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Corey Puffett, your host for this week, and I'm joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. How you guys doing today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great. My Lions are still in it.
Yes, still in the dance.
Exciting times. How are you doing, Eric?
My team hasn't been in it for a long time, so I'm past that. I'm doing good. Yeah,
Just good.
Yeah, just good.
Okay. Well, we're going to be talking about a handful of items this week. I'm getting an alert from our app here that something is going on, but it seems like we're still connected. So hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully we don't run into some of the issues we were running with the live stream last week. If we do, again, the recording will still be good. We'll be fine for what we post up on Apple and Spotify and all that.
All 0 viewers last week were just up in
absolutely
arms.
Beside themselves.
Yeah.
So, got a lot to talk about this week. I'm going to try and get us through it relatively quickly. I want to start briefly with baseball. Evan and Eric, your guys' Orioles made a huge splash today. Who'd they sign?
Apparently they signed Tyler Nevin, who we already know sucks.
I know you guys are just so happy about that.
Oh,
I thought that was yesterday.
Was it yesterday? Whenever
Sure,
it was.
whenever
this week.
it was.
It's so
he's not any
I
good.
don't remember when.
Right, he's
Technically, it was a trade.
Oh, we gave up
was it?
something to get Tyler Nevin?
Cash considerations went to the Tigers for Tyler Nevin. What does cash considerations mean? Like, we'll consider giving you some money.
I mean, it's
might
just
not-
money instead of, I guess, picks or
But it's
trade,
not cash. It's cash considerations.
Yeah.
Like, we're considering this.
No, they're considering how much cash to send back.
Or are you just considering whether to send cash?
So the Tigers don't get to say, hey, we want this much money. The Orioles can just be like, we'll figure out how much we're willing to cough up a little later.
I mean, when you're a Major League Baseball team, like, cash considerations, that'll mean nothing.
No,
Right?
absolutely
It's
not.
just a bag of beans.
Why can't we trade players for cash in the NFL?
I don't know.
I ask Roger Goodell.
Yeah, ask DeMaurice Smith, or is he still the head of the PA, or is it somebody else?
Who knows? Anyway, my Yankees this past week landed Marcus Stroman on a 2-year, $37 million deal. In fact, I think that was a little more than a week ago now. But this week, Houston signed Josh Hader to a 5-year deal worth $95 million. The Dodgers signed Teoscar Hernandez this month to a 1-year deal worth $23.5 million. And I bring all those up mostly just to lead into the fact that we are less than a month away from spring training now. Players will have all reported to all 30 teams in less than a month. Pitchers and catchers report in mid-February. The Yankees and Orioles have players reporting on Thursday, February 15th, as far as pitchers and catchers, and the rest of squads on Tuesday, February 20th. One thing that I found kind of interesting is that while all the teams have pitchers and catchers reporting on either the 14th or the 15th, there are two exceptions. The Dodgers and the Padres have theirs reporting on February 9th and 11th, so a week earlier almost for the Dodgers in particular.
Are they having an early season?
I think there's like a game in Korea, maybe.
That probably explains that.
If there was living, breathing, and functioning internet in this building, I could look that up. But I got nothing.
That probably is the case. So anyway, we're around the corner from baseball, so that's getting exciting.
Still a lot of free agents available too.
There are still a lot of free agents.
And it got above freezing here today. So there's that.
Today was actually pretty nice.
It felt like
I don't
beach
know,
weather.
I don't know how much of that was just that like I've gotten so used to it being freezing out that this felt great. Like it felt like it could have been 60 degrees out and it was only like 44.
Yeah, it reached like 47 according to my car, but considering it's been 17 as the high for some of these days, it feels really nice.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the NBA and what's been going on this past week. So I want to start with just like, what was it, 2 days ago, or was it last night that Joel Embiid scored 70? That was last night. That's a 76ers record. Yeah, that's better than Wilt Chamberlain ever did when he was in Philly. Want to get your thoughts, Eric, about Joel Embiid's non-candidacy for MVP, or at least bordering non-candidacy. I think he's still potentially in the running, but he's in danger of not having enough games played to be eligible
for the
MVP.
Yeah, so the NBA changed up the rules for like postseason award voting, specifically MVP and all NBA teams. You have to play a certain number of the team's games.
And I think the number is 65
is the number, which means you can only miss 17. That's math.
He's missed like 11
He's
so
missed
far?
11 already, and we're just a little bit past the halfway point of the season, which would suggest he's on pace to miss too many to actually qualify for the MVP. And there's been some consternation about the purported unfairness of this, which...
Oh, the most valuable player needs to
be
play?
there for at least 80% of the games. Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So I actually looked this up out of curiosity. The MVP award has existed since, I believe, the end of the 1954-55 season.
Okay.
So I'm not going to try to do the quick math.
We're almost at 70 years of this.
Yeah, we're pretty far along here. How many times has somebody played fewer than 65 games? Or better yet, how often has someone played fewer than 80% of the games? Because they've been shortened seasons,
sure.
Obviously.
So how many times has somebody played less than 80% of their games and won this
the MVP?
award?
Yes.
I'm going to guess that the number is probably 0, but it's definitely under 5.
It's 1.
Okay.
There's one guy, it was Bill Walton in 1978. He played 58 games, and his winning the award... It was 82 game season, yeah.
Okay.
And his winning the award was a tight race. Like, it wasn't unanimous. He was clearly the best player in the league that year, but...
So he was clearly the best player, and yet it still came down to a very tight race.
He edged out George Gervin to win the award, and that was the only time. That was in 1978. That was
puffed by him, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's making fun of Bill Walton for being a stoner.
Yes.
Which we love Bill Walton. Bill Walton's a legend.
Yeah, we like Bill Walton.
Not you, the Puff, for example.
Yes. I mean, he said that Mike Trout hit the ball out of the universe when he was, for some reason, broadcasting an Angels White Sox game, I think it was.
Because I think it was Dave Pash does college basketball with Bill Walton, Pac-12 After Dark, but also does the White Sox games.
So he brought him in for that. That's pretty cool. Anyway, so he's the only one, and... I've looked at... it wasn't even like it was particularly close. Just about every MVP played at least 76 games. Right? There's only a couple of exceptions that even got close to 70.
Wow.
Right? It was super uncommon because just about everybody agreed, hey, if you don't show up for the games, you can't win the MVP award.
Which makes a lot of sense when you think
the
about it, even just a little bit.
This regulation didn't really need to exist, and honestly... If Embiid plays 65 games, you're not going to convince me that even though he's putting up these prolific numbers, he's averaging 36 points per game, which is absurd, and he's helping his team win a lot of games, you can't tell me that he deserves the MVP over Nikola Jokic, who has only missed one game all season. He's on pace to play 80. And in terms of impact...
And I would imagine is also helping his team win a lot of games.
The Nuggets have a very good record.
So at that point, you have to look at, okay, so who wasn't helping their team win a lot of games? And right now, that is very much Joel Embiid over Nikola Jokic.
Well, yeah, if you miss 15 more games, that hurts your case. And
even right now, he has not helped his team win 10 more games than Nikola Jokic has.
Well... I mean...
He's missed 11 games. Jokic has missed 1.
Right, but it's not like Jokic won all 10 of those extra games.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that he was helping...
Games.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand what you're saying, though. The fact that availability is the best ability. We talk about it all the time. Can't make the club in the tub. Mm-hmm. Throw out all the cliches. And the thing is, if Embiid really wants the award, it's not like he's been sitting out because he had serious injuries where he had to miss time. He was, resting because he's a little banged up here and there. You tell me Nikola Jokic isn't banged up? Like, he doesn't have little boo-boos and bumps and bruises and stuff like that?
I get the sense that Jokic, he's has boo-boos and bumps and bruises, but he's just doesn't care.
Yes.
From having grown up in Serbia?
Yeah, where bombs are dropped.
Where there's bombs going off and his crazy brothers and stuff.
Well, let's not, Joel Embiid grew up in Cameroon. I can't imagine his situation was, posh.
No,
but
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go there and say it, but
you got to be out there.
In terms of basketball, Jokic has shown a level of durability that Embiid has not. That goes without saying. And
Did Embiid win the Rookie of the Year in his third year? Did that happen?
No, because in his third year, he still only played like 30 games.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Like, he sat the first 2 years in full, came out there, tore it up for like 35 games. The Sixers deliberately, sat him due to injury so that they could tank some more.
Who did they get?
That season, they got Ben Simmons, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Or did they get the pudgy guy from Duke, whose name I can't remember?
Jalil Okafor?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, that doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
So anyway,
we can move on.
Yeah. Anyway, so Embiid, if he doesn't play 65 games, like I don't want to hear any whining. Like Rachel Nichols posted a tweet about how this isn't going to be right if he misses 20 games.
It's going to be right
just because he had one.
If he misses a quarter of the season,
like again, he's been fantastic when he's on the floor, but
like you also can't just like have that reaction to a 70-point game. Like, did Kobe Bryant win MVP the year he scored 81? No. So, Tristan Thompson has been suspended for 25 games. He plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He violated the NBA's anti-drug policy. Specifically, he tested positive for a growth hormone and for another substance often used for muscle enhancement by bodybuilders and weightlifters. So I'm curious, Eric, how does this impact the Cavaliers? Because right now they're sitting at 9 games above 500. They're 4th in the East. And Tristan Thompson's a pretty good player for them.
And he's no longer eligible to win MVP of the league either. So
That's true. I think you're overestimating Tristan Thompson's value.
Am I?
He's averaging 4 points and 4 rebounds a game.
Oh, is that it?
He plays 12 minutes a game. He's kind of washed.
Okay. So maybe that's why he's doing this.
Yeah, people were making fun of him. It's like, you cheated just to average 4, 4, and 1? Like, really?
Fair enough. That's not good.
And there are plenty of jokes also about how whatever Kardashian he was with knows all about him cheating.
Oh, no.
So,
dear.
He had a cheat baby, so consider that as well. I don't feel inclined to spend much time on Tristan Thompson.
So it's been literally a pool party in Washington. Eric saw the clip that I sent him from the other.
A little old.
I guess it is a little bit old, but I want to know because we keep seeing clips of Jordan Poole, and the one that popped up on my timeline this week was the one where he pump fakes, he gets the shot like blocked or whatever happened.
Yeah.
It's taken the other way, it's turned over, he gets the ball back, and then he slips in a pool of his own sweat from when he flopped to try to get a call.
Yeah.
Has there been anything at all redeeming about Jordan Poole's time in DC?
It's been hilarious. Like that play was like. It's not just the fact that he's
redeeming for him and for the team, not for fans or people who actually enjoy seeing him.
Well, let me finish how the way he flopped. He looked like a white person in an infomercial. Just like his arms and legs and extremities flailing everywhere and just
looking at the camera like, oh,
like, what happened? And then of course the fact that he got teed up during the timeout break afterwards because he was yelling at the ref for not calling the foul on his flop attempt. So. It's been surprisingly bad, which says a lot about the low expectations of Jordan Poole. He wasn't good last year. He got sent away from Golden State because of Draymond, but also because there were concerns of can this guy take the job seriously anymore? And he goes to the Wizards, who are the legendary unserious franchise. Like it's one thing that like the Clippers are a bad franchise, but they take it seriously. They're just bad at it. The Wizards don't take it seriously most of the time. Like, we've seen Gilbert Arenas in the post-Gilbert era with JaVale McGee, Nick Young, and Andre Blatche all on the same team. Like, they put those 3 clowns in the starting lineup together for a whole ass season, and we had to watch it, and it was awesome. But this feels kind of similar with Kyle Kuzma and Poole. Like, Poole is, again, I mentioned this earlier this season, Poole and Kuzma have been the ringleaders of the circus. So, but they're also your championship veterans, right? Kyle Kuzma has a ring. Jordan Poole has a ring, and they helped their teams win those rings. So it's just curious that these guys have just deferred to being such goofballs, but now teams are actually interested in Kyle Kuzma as a trade piece.
Oh, send him away. Gotta go.
And, so we'll see what the Wizards decide to do with him. But as far as Jordan Poole goes, just seems to be who he's committed to being at this point. Like he wasn't joking when he said, "Pressure's off me. I got my money and I got my ring."
Who's coaching this team? Right,
Wes Unseld Jr. Who's
somebody needs to grab Jordan Poole by the collar and be like, "Hey, this is a serious operation, apparently."
But it's not.
And, you need to
Eric
stop
just explained,
the fool.
The Wizards are not a serious operation.
The only reason that Wes Unseld Jr. still has his job is because his pops' number is hanging from the rafters. That's it.
So all the silly NBA headlines aside, more serious news today. The Milwaukee Bucks fired Adrian Griffin. No, Evan, this was not Eric's doing.
No, I didn't do this one.
No.
I specifically highlighted why I didn't pick him for Coach of the Year.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this firing? Where do the Bucks go from here?
I mean, the firing is... I can't say I'm shocked because I've just heard so much. There's been rumblings about how the team and Griffin haven't meshed, and it just isn't working. Like, people were surprised. Like, I think in our fantasy football chat, or a couple of people mentioned they're 30-13. They've got the second best record in the Eastern Conference. How are they firing this guy under these circumstances? But when you dig a little bit below the surface, as I pointed out, you look at the point differential, their net rating, they're 10th in the NBA. And if you're a Wizards fan, you'd be thrilled to have the 10th best point differential in the NBA. But if you're a Bucks fan...
Do the Wizards have better than the 10th worst?
No, of course not.
Oh, okay.
No, they're probably in the bottom 2 or 3. But the Bucks are... It seems like they've strung together some close wins against some bad teams because, hey, they do have Damian Lillard and Giannis, and if you're in a close game against a crummy team that doesn't have anybody nearly that good, you're going to be able to figure it out down the stretch. But the fact is their defense has been horrible, which I predicted would happen when they traded away Drew Holiday, who was their best point of attack defender, and they acquired Damian Lillard, who has always been a poor defender. They're not going to be able to protect him. They're not going to be able to cover up for him like everybody pretended like they could. It's like, no, they relied on the fact that Drew Holiday didn't just let people get into the paint at will. But Damian Lillard doesn't do that. And so they basically have to outscore everybody. And while their offense is very, very good, I think it's the second best in the NBA in terms of offensive rating, it's not good enough to carry a horrible defense. Like, there's no such thing as a championship team that plays this bad a defense in history. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Isn't basketball defense just about effort, right? Like, why can't they try harder and play better defense?
It's about effort, but it's also about communication. It's about instincts. And when you're Damian Lillard, it's about physicality. It's about, hey, I'm 33 years old. I'm a small guard that carries a significant offensive load. That's a guy who, isn't typically going to defend well. We talk about it all the time, where Kawhi Leonard was probably the best perimeter defender in the NBA until he was asked to start scoring 25 points a game. And then suddenly his defense was still good, but it slipped a little bit because, hey, I'm having to exert myself on the offensive end a lot. You can't expect me to go out there and also lock down LeBron. Right. So, that's sort of an issue there. Oh. I mean, you only got so much energy.
Yeah.
It's a thing. And basketball is a constantly moving game. There's not as much rest time. It's not like football where, football's tough, but imagine trying to tell somebody to go, imagine telling Tyreek Hill, hey, you got to go out there and run routes all day, and then we also need you to go out there and cover A.J. Brown.
Right.
He would be gassed.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. There's an understanding that certain players that have to exert themselves offensively shouldn't be expected to also be defensive stoppers. And we also see that's why teams target those type of players. Like, we see people target Steph on defense, not necessarily because Steph's a bad defender, but because if they make him exert himself on that end, it's going to negatively affect his offensive production.
Yep.
And so there's a little bit of Damian Lillard just doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the motor, it seems, to be able to do those things. He doesn't navigate screens well, which is more about instinct and understanding positioning and things like that. He's never been good at it. And to expect somebody who's 33 years old, not in his prime anymore, to come in and be like, yeah, I'm suddenly going to be a serviceable defender, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Before we move on to college basketball, I want to briefly stop back at Major League Baseball because I missed a bit of news that was released a little more than half an hour ago, about 40 minutes ago now at this point, because, last 30 minutes or so before the show, we're kind of finishing up our prep. But Major League Baseball announced the new Hall of Fame class. And
really?
Shout out to friend of the show, Alex Mayo, who put the link in our fantasy baseball chat just a little bit ago. But the class of 2024 is going to consist of Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Todd Helton.
Joe and Adrian are first ballot Hall of Famers. Helton's been on the ballot for a good little while. Glad to see him get in.
Well played, Mauer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
So
thank you, Kevin Butler.
Beltre, 477 career home runs, 1,700 RBIs, over 3,100 hits, 5-time Gold Glove winner. Mauer, a 3-time batting title champion, and he got an MVP award. 923 career RBI and 143 home runs with a batting average of 306. And then Todd Helton, known for his time with the Rockies, batting average of 316 over his career. Almost 370 home runs, over 1,400 RBIs, over 2,500 hits, and a 3-time Gold Glove winner.
And Helton was Peyton Manning's backup at Tennessee, if I remember correctly.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, Todd Helton he was sort of penalized, reminded me of Larry Walker a little bit, because he played at Coors Field for most of his career.
Yeah.
So people kind of discounted his offensive production. But, eventually the nerds won out. And we have park factors that adjust for those things when computing your OPS plus or your weighted runs created plus, and that affects your wins above replacement as well. And Helton, even despite having those discounts, those extreme discounts that come with playing at Coors Field and in Denver, he still had a Hall of Fame resume by that data. And, I got to talk about my guy, Adrian Beltre, a little bit. Mariners legend, Adrian Beltre.
He was on the Mariners for, 2 years?
5 years.
Oh.
He's there for 5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
He was there for a little bit.
He played what was supposed to be his prime years in Seattle. Age 26 through 31.
But we still know him for being with the Rangers.
Yes.
And the Dodgers.
And the Dodgers.
And the Red
Dodgers,
Sox.
That's true.
Yeah, he had his best years came with everybody but the Mariners. But he was still a good Mariner. The offensive production wasn't as high. It doesn't help that you're
For the Mariners?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Shocker that a Mariner couldn't hit. But, he was a great player. He was a really fun guy, too. A great clubhouse guy. And actually could play baseball.
Yes. It's a great clubhouse guy.
The thing is, Beltre would go out there, and even in years where he, his first year with the Mariners, he had, a really down year. He only batted, 260-something and only hit 19 dingers. But his wins above replacement was still elite just because of his defense. He is one of the very best defensive third basemen to ever play. The 5 Gold Gloves, frankly, don't do it justice because they didn't start giving him Gold Gloves until they basically graduated Eric Chavez from winning the award, because he was always the guy winning it for the A's. And they were like, we're going to give it to Chavez again. Even though everybody's like, Beltre's better than him. And, they play in the same league now, so give it to Beltre. So he probably could easily have 7 or 8 Gold Gloves. And the offense obviously came along after he left Seattle and started hitting home runs with high frequency. He played forever. He was drafted, or he was signed as an international signee at 15 or 16 years old.
Didn't he come up with the Dodgers when he was 19 or 20?
Yeah, he got to the show when he was really, really young. I have his rookie card. I got it at Cooperstown.
Oh, nice.
And then with the Dodgers, he had that 48 homer season that led to the Mariners giving him a big contract. And frankly, even though he didn't hit the dingers, he still lived up to that contract just because, again, he was a good hitter and a great defender, which made him a very good player. And then, of course, he just went up another level when he went to Boston and then eventually to the Rangers. So I'm glad to see him get his due respect because he was a very underrated player for pretty much his entire career.
I've pulled up the Dodgers and Padres schedule. They start the season March 20th at 6:05 a.m. Eastern in Korea.
There you go.
There you go. All right, let's talk some college basketball. And before we get to the teams, I want to start with a little bit more of a general topic because This came up a couple of times this past weekend, court storming. By now, most people who pay attention to sports have probably seen somewhere the video of Caitlin Clark and a Ohio State fan colliding after the number 18 Buckeyes upset number 2 Iowa on their home court, and fans stormed the court. What people may not have seen was court storming in Tulane, where number 10 Memphis, this is on the men's side, number 10 Memphis lost at Tulane, and afterwards a fan for Tulane made contact with one of the Memphis players, basically it looked like a double pat on the back, but it seemed clearly intended as a taunt. Like, sorry, dude, you lost, haha, or whatever. Not, it wasn't this egregious, contact that could injure somebody the way that the contact between Caitlin Clark and this OSU fan potentially could have, although, some of the instant replay makes it look like Caitlin Clark flopped, which I kind of thought it looked like that at the time. I did not think that the fan ran into her so much as she ran into the fan.
I got some
live video.
I got some things to say about that. Yeah.
In any case, I want to get both of your guys' thoughts. First of all, we've all been students who have gone to college basketball games. I believe we've all taken part in a court storming at some point.
Several.
I know you've done several. I've had at least one and maybe
there
two.
For two of them with
me.
I
thought I was there for 2.
Yeah.
Our basketball team didn't suck that bad. Come on. We did win some of the time.
But did you ever participate in a court storming? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yes. That was my point. I'm pretty sure that all of us here have participated in a court storming at some point.
Yeah.
So being able to kind of see both sides of the elation that you feel as a fan at a game like that, where your team is not really supposed to win, you're playing against a really, really good opponent, and you get that win. And in some ways, you just can't help but be so excited that it almost becomes an out-of-body experience. I know it was for me. It was almost an out-of-body experience storming the court.
Oh. I mean,
I have very little memory of anything that happened while I was on the court. I just remember that it happened.
Nothing happens when you're out there. You're just standing with a bunch of other sweaty people.
Yeah, it's just a mob of people. So, I understand that aspect of it, of being so excited that your team just pulled off this massive upset that you just don't know what to do with yourself, right? At the same time, we're also able to sit back and look at this and recognize there is an inherent danger to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So where do we go? What can be done? What should be done?
My opinion is, if we do this podcast long enough, we'll turn into old men. And
if we haven't already.
Yeah, if we haven't already, we're going to get these kids off my yard. And as I age, I try to remember, don't get in the way of kids just having fun, right? So my attitude on this is let the kids have fun. Just run out there and jump around and stuff. Obviously, when you run anywhere, there's inherent danger of running into something or someone running into you or whatever. But
sure, but
just be cognizant of where you're going.
Well, that can be really difficult though in a situation like this, right? When you're running, let's take for example, as a cross country coach, some of my athletes have races where you have a few dozen athletes at the starting line. Some of the races have a couple hundred. We had a meet at Shawin Downs up in Cockeysville, Maryland, the Maryland XC Invitational, where in the JV race, there are somewhere around 800 athletes on the starting line for the boys JV race. And that is still less dangerous, right? You can say, well, there's an inherent risk of running into somebody anywhere. And yes, there's very likely going to be some contact made over the course of that. But everybody's running in the same direction. Nobody's just running toward a central point, right? Well, everybody's running toward a finish line that's far off in the distance.
This is where I would question your experience, because in all of these races, you'd just be way out in front of everybody. So the point where everybody converged was behind you.
Okay, but I'm a coach now, and so I'm not sitting here saying I've never been able to see it, right? I understand that. I was very fast, and I was able to avoid in most races,
there's never anybody near you. What are you talking about?
But now as a coach, I'm actually watching it happen. And yes, you start on this really long spread out line, and you do have to, file down into sometimes it's a little bit of a bottleneck. In a meet like that where it's that wide of a line, you have a very long distance to go before it gets to that point. And so, your faster runners are up ahead, your slower runners are behind. And so, you're all converging into the same area. I haven't
experienced with this
but you're
either,
getting there at very different times,
right?
This is a 4D situation, not just a 3D situation, because you're also adding in time. Right?
Okay.
When are you getting to that point? That's a big difference as opposed to in a court storming, everybody's getting to that central point at the same time.
And basketball courts are underratedly small compared to a football field.
Yes, it's 94 by, I don't even know what the width is. And that's feet, not yards. So, I remember my first court storming. Maryland beat Duke my freshman year to snag a share of the ACC regular season title. Ooh. And so it was a big deal in terms of just, not just in terms of the one game, but also it made a big difference for the Terps. It's the reason why they were a 4 seed in the tournament that year. But I remember seeing multiple people run onto the floor and shove Kyle Singler. Now.
Yeah.
I have no love lost for Kyle Singler.
Not at all.
Which
this is not an example of somebody that I feel much sympathy for.
No. I did not care one bit, nor do I to this day.
Yeah.
But I do understand why certain Duke fans or Duke's coaching staff might have concern with, hey, their guys are getting pushed by these idiots running onto the floor.
I do like Kyle Singler more than Grayson Allen. I'll just put that on the record.
Okay.
No, that's the lowest of the low bars. That's Randy Newman level low bar here. Come on, man. But my thing about this is you got to make sure that the other kids on the team are safe. Yeah. And that means that security has to follow protocols, make sure that they're able to be escorted to the locker room safely, and the players have to also go along with that.
The home team?
The home team and the road team.
I think we're talking specifically about the road team.
And because I'm in the case that I'm talking about to counter it was what happened with Caitlin Clark, where the rest of the Hawkeyes were escorted off the floor. She made her own path. Yeah, and it's obvious what happened there when you actually see decent angles and close-ups. She intentionally ran into that person because she was pissed. And she shoved that person because she was pissed. Yeah. And then she flopped so that she wouldn't look like the bad guy. That's what happened. Caitlin Clark was the villain in this case.
It seems the eye in the sky doesn't lie here.
The eye in the sky does not lie. And of course, the thing is, I've known that Caitlin Clark is like this. And I don't have a problem with it. She is not a sweetheart. Never has been. And that's sort of been a lot of people's takes because, she's white. Let's be honest about that, especially after she got, her face rubbed in it by Angel Reese, who is black. There was a huge contingent of Americans like, this is America's sweetheart. White girl Caitlin Clark hitting all these threes and doing all these awesome things. No, Caitlin Clark is a dog.
Yeah, she's a hot-blooded competitor.
She plays hard and she plays nasty just as anybody else.
That's what makes her great.
Think about all the one of the biggest replays that you watch, when they show clips of women's basketball right now in some of these commercials. Watching football, we're seeing it a lot during the playoffs. Is her making a shot and then running taunting the crowd, screaming at the crowd.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing at all wrong with that. This is not some sweet girl you got to protect.
No,
she's a competitor.
No, she acts a fool sometimes out there, just like anybody else that runs hot on the basketball floor would. And this is one of those instances where she had every reason to want to shove some jerk fan who was running out there like an idiot, admittedly, with their phone live streaming or whatever, not paying any attention to where she was going. Caitlin Clark had a clear field of vision. Caitlin Clark is literally one of the best passers in college basketball. She sees everything. You're telling me she didn't see this person who was running directly in front of her? She didn't come from a severe angle. She basically
she ran into the fan's shoulder.
Yeah. Oh. It was probably the angle as they were converging on each other was north of 135 degrees. It was pretty much like she ran into it straight on. It was ridiculous. Just smack right into you. Yeah. It was ridiculous. It was clear what she did, and then she flopped. And everybody, and it's like, we got to worry about player safety. I'm like, no, it sounds like we got to worry about the safety of the fans in this case because you're a menace out there.
Oh,
just flattening people and stuff.
Imagine
like
if a football player did this in a field storming situation, right?
With pads on too.
Yeah, like we ran out there a few times when I was in school, and when you're in the stands, you sort of intuitively assume that they're normal sized human beings out there. No. But then when you run out there, it's like, oh. Okay.
You never,
these are giants of giants.
Yeah, you've never been to a hockey game either, I can attest to. You get down on the glass during pregame and you just realize how gigantic these men are.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God.
It doesn't help that they're also on skates, which probably adds about, close to a foot of height. So they're just, if Ovechkin's 6'3" and 240 pounds, imagine him being on stilts.
Yeah. Well, I found myself enveloped by the offensive lineman. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Let me just go over here.
This is why they protect the quarterback. Yeah. Because these guys are
That's
huge.
Why they're going to school for free, and I'm not.
Yeah, and but I mean, when we stormed the court the first time again, DeMatha had a bunch of kids there, to watch the game as potential recruits. Mikael Hopkins was there. I think Jerry and Grant was there. Quinn Cook was there. And, I ran onto the court, and I saw Mikael, and I said, "What's up, Mikael?" And, of course, he's 6'8". He's towering over everybody, looking confused, because somehow he ended up on the floor. But, yeah, it's definitely mayhem, and you got to worry about, taking care of the players. But, come on, man. Like, how often has anybody gotten injured during a court storming? I don't think it's ever happened. Like, it doesn't sound like a real situation that is, this sounds like a solution in search of a problem. Like, yes, secure the safety of the players, but let the kids do what they want to do. Also, shout out Tulane for taking care of me when I was in New Orleans and I stumbled across the street with a scratched cornea, because that's right there across the street from Bourbon Street. And I stumbled a couple of blocks and walked in there, and they charged me like $1,000 to be there for 10 minutes. So that was fun. This is my little lesson, the healthcare system we have here, where it's insane. But yeah. Anyway, that's all I got.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the teams in college basketball. We'll start on the men's side. The Maryland Terrapins. Eric, your Maryland Terrapins, couple of tough losses this past week against Northwestern and Michigan State. Both came down to the final possession. Yep. Any thoughts on those games?
Yeah, it's tough because after the Terps beat Illinois and after they came back from their seemingly embarrassing loss to Michigan, it felt like the team had, I don't want to say turned a corner, but like they were trending up. And I didn't think that these two outcomes suggested that wasn't the case. It just would have been nice to win. You go on the road against Northwestern, who's a pretty good team, and they're probably going to the tournament. And
oh, really?
Yeah, like they're a good team.
Noteworthy for them.
Yeah, and I think they made the tournament last year too. Like they've got some good players on it. I mean, they beat Purdue both times they played them at home the last 2 years. So, losing that game was tough. Jameer Young went off, which is pretty much what he has to do in order for the Terps to win at all. And he had an opportunity to win the game after he hit a step back three in traffic to give the Terps a 1-point lead. But then Boo Buie, who is a real person and also a really good player, just absolutely cooked Dante Scott for an easy layup to give him the lead back. Terps had one more possession. Young pulled up from 18 feet, just couldn't knock it down, and they ended up losing. And then this weekend on Sunday, they played Michigan State at home. And it was a back-and-forth game. The Terps' offense just stalled out. Young had a tough game. Tom Izzo understood the assignment because he's Tom Izzo. That Jameer Young's the only real threat on the floor that can beat you with the ball in his hand. So he was being hounded. He turned the ball over 7 times. He got some buckets, but there were some moments where he was clearly trying to force it. I think that their defense rattled him a bit. And that's what happens when you don't have a second guy, where it's like, okay, take some pressure off Jameer, let somebody else run some sets, and let the defense have to hone in on somebody else to let Jameer get into a rhythm. It just didn't happen. And Jameer still put up decent point totals, just wasn't his best game. I think the Terps were up 63-60, and I think they maybe scored 5 more points the rest of the game, and that was with 8 minutes left. Yikes. So they just were not putting the ball in the basket at all.
So a few weeks ago, seemed like you felt like Maryland's tournament hopes were all but dead.
Yeah.
They get the big win against Illinois, who was ranked number 10 at the time. It seemed like that breathed a little bit of life and hope into the fan base. Where do they stand now in terms of their hopes for the postseason.
I mean, even with that Illinois win, it was understood that there was going to be a really tough uphill battle to get back into this thing. Like, they were probably going to have to finish like 11-3 in conference play to have a real shot at doing this, especially with some of their or early season losses against like Davidson and UAB. Mm-hmm. But, given the fact that they just pulled off that win, and given the fact that there was still belief in this team in the preseason that they could do some really nice things in Big Ten play, you thought, okay, if we can get on a roll, maybe. But then you lose 2 straight games, and even though you played better and you competed in those games, it's too little too late at this point. Like, I don't think they have a path to make it as an at-large bid. They're going to have to win the tournament. And I don't think that's going to happen either. So,
that's a tall task.
Just at this point, just stay out of the Wednesday bracket where it's like the bottom 4 teams have to play the play-in to play in the play-in to play on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
So Maryland plays against Iowa tomorrow night. That's the main reason why we're doing the show tonight instead of Wednesday this week. Because even with their tournament hopes all but dead, Eric still wants to catch that game.
I'm going to be watching, yeah. They're going to lose. They're going to win that game.
They also play Nebraska on Saturday, and then they get a week off. Georgia Tech, Evan, your Yellow Jackets, they're now 9-9. So they've had a rough last few weeks. Last week we mentioned that they had snapped a 5-game losing streak with that double overtime win at Clemson. And then they turned around and lost to Virginia on Saturday. So,
we always lose to Virginia, though.
Yeah, not great for the Yellow Jackets. They've got matchups against Pittsburgh, at Virginia Tech, and then at home against number 3 UNC in the next 7 days.
The one time we beat Virginia was when in the 2021 ACC tournament when they had some COVID issues, and we just got to advance past them.
Yeah, you just got to win the tournament without doing anything, and they put you in the big tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane.
How else are we going to go to the big tournament? Not by winning games. You kidding me?
No.
So we had some more upsets this past week. Nothing quite like last week where we had 10 losses amongst top 10 teams. This week we only had 5 top 10 teams lose. So we'll go through all the upsets here real quick for ranked teams. Last Wednesday, number 22 Ole Miss lost at LSU by 9 points. The next day, number 10 Memphis lost at home. This was not the court storming situation. This was a home game against South Florida where they lost by 1 point. That was before Sunday when they turned around and lost again at Tulane. On Saturday, we had 5 upsets of top 25 teams. Number 3 Kansas lost at West Virginia, 85-91. Number 7 Duke lost at home to Pittsburgh, 76-80. Number 9 Baylor lost at Texas by 2 points. Number 19 TCU lost at home to 24 Iowa State by 1 point. And number 20 BYU lost at number 25 Texas Tech, 78-85. So those are your upsets from the past week. Looking ahead to this week, just 3 matchups between ranked teams between now and next Wednesday. Tonight is one of them, 9 p.m. on the Big 12 Network. Number 4 Houston at number 21 BYU. We previewed this last week because we assumed that we would be streaming on Wednesday. So we had already talked about this one. But real quick, I'll just mention that this is Houston's 3rd matchup of the week. After those 2 losses we talked about last week to unranked opponents, but they've seemed to right the ship. Meanwhile, BYU is 2-2 against ranked opponents after their loss to Texas Tech on Saturday. This Sunday at 1:30 p.m. on CBS, number 4 Kansas against number 23 Iowa State. This is in Des Moines. Iowa State's been pretty hot lately, 9-2 over the last 11 games. 3 of their 4 losses this season are to ranked opponents, and they've beaten both TCU and Houston over the past 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Kansas fell out of the top 3 with their loss to West Virginia, and some think that they won't be able to play their way back into a 1 seed in time for the tournament. At least that's what I'm seeing from some folks on ESPN. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. Right now, Kansas is on the outside looking in. I think that they've actually fallen to number 7. Meanwhile, a little bit later on Saturday, 2 p.m. on ESPN+, number 20 Texas Tech at number 11 Oklahoma. Texas Tech is 2-1 against ranked opponents, with their only loss coming to Houston, who's in the top 5. Meanwhile, Oklahoma has had some trouble this season against ranked opponents, with all 3 of their losses coming to teams who have been in the top 25 at some point this season. On the women's side, the Lady Terps still can't seem to win consecutive games in conference. They're 4-3 in conference play, alternating wins and losses. They lost at home last Wednesday against number 18 Ohio State, and then they beat Illinois on Saturday. This week they have Michigan and Penn State. Those games are tomorrow and Sunday. Both of them are unranked teams, so hopefully, these will be they'll get their first consecutive conference wins of the season. Evan, your Lady Jackets also 4-3 in conference, sitting at 13-6. They got a 15-point win against Boston College on Sunday. They are at number 19 Virginia Tech on Thursday. Then they host number 23 Florida State on Sunday. And while we're a week out, I'll go ahead and mention that they follow those games up with a visit from number 15 Notre Dame next Thursday. So pretty tough stretch with 3 straight ranked opponents coming up.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So keep an eye on those.
I won't
watch the games.
Not going to, so quit asking.
So upsets this week on the women's side. On Wednesday, you had number 22 Marquette losing at Villanova by 3 points, and number 24 Iowa State losing at Texas Tech 63-71. On Thursday, you had 3 upsets of ranked teams. Number 4 NC State lost at Miami 59-73. Pretty ugly loss there for a top 4 team. Number 14 Virginia Tech lost at Duke 46-63, and number 15 Florida State lost at Syracuse 73-79. On Friday, number 3 Colorado lost at home against number 5 UCLA. That was a 68-76 game. Pretty good matchup there between 2 top 5 teams. Number 6 USC lost at number 20 Utah. That was a 20-point game. So pretty ugly loss for the Trojans. Saturday, number 25 UNLV lost at home against New Mexico by 3 points. Sunday, the aforementioned Iowa upset at Ohio State. Number 13 Louisville lost at number 23 UNC 68-79. Number 15 Florida State lost at home versus Virginia by 4 points. And then on Monday, a big upset as number 16 Utah defended home court against number 2 UCLA. That was a 94-81 win for the Utes. Upcoming ranked matchups. Thursday on ACCNX. ACC Network Extreme. Number 22, Syracuse at number 15, Notre Dame. Syracuse has looked pretty good this year. Their only losses have been to a then-ranked Terps team and a now-ranked UNC team. Meanwhile, the Irish also lost to UNC. They lost to South Carolina in their season opener. And now they're looking to get revenge this week after a 5-point loss to Syracuse on New Year's Eve. Thursday, 8 p.m. on ESPN, number 1, South Carolina, the only undefeated team in men's or women's college basketball at 17-0. They face number 9, LSU, who's 18-2. It's the only matchup between these 2 Final Four teams from a year ago. LSU saw a 16-game win streak end 9 days ago against Auburn. They've beaten Alabama and Arkansas since then. A handful of other ranked games this week. Friday, 10 p.m., number 3 Colorado at number 25 Oregon State. The Buffaloes are 2-1 in their last 3, all of them home games against top 10 teams. They've had a pretty tough stretch. Oregon State won their first 12 games this season, but they're 3-3 in their last 6. All 3 of those losses have been against top 10 teams. Those are the only ranked matchups they've played this season, and now they have to play number 3 Colorado. So not looking great for the home team in that one. Saturday at 8 p.m. on Fox, number 15 Notre Dame at number 8 UConn. Notre Dame has slipped a bit lately, dropping 2 of their last 7 games, both of them to undefeated teams, although, to be fair, both UNC and Syracuse have entered the top 25 since those games. Meanwhile, UConn has won 2 more games since their last show to extend their win streak to 12, and it could be 13 by this matchup as their game against Marquette has tipped off as we were getting underway this evening. Sunday at noon on ACC Network, 16 Virginia Tech at number 22 Syracuse. I already discussed Syracuse with their Thursday matchup with Notre Dame. I'll mention that Virginia Tech has been having a pretty solid season. All of their losses have come against ranked opponents, except for last Thursday's loss to Duke. Sunday at 3 p.m., number 16 Utah at number 25 Oregon State. Again, already discussed Oregon State with their Friday matchup with Oregon. Utah, they are 0-4 they were 0-4 against ranked teams this year before getting home wins against number 6 USC and number 2 UCLA just over the last 4 days. So they'll look to continue that heater against both Oregon and Oregon State this coming week. Monday, 8:30 p.m., number 7 Kansas State at number 12 Baylor. Kansas State 17-1 this season, Baylor 14-2. Kansas State was unranked when they beat number 2 Iowa back on November 16th, but their only loss was a second meeting with the Hawkeyes in the Gulf. Sorry, I think that this one, these last two are from last week. I think that I forgot to erase those from our notes, so we'll move off of women's college basketball.
Y'all stormed the court because you
it.
beat Wake Forest.
They're ranked number 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
What are you looking at?
Evan sent something in the chat.
So just not paying any attention to what's going on the show right now.
Well, that's what you guys do all the time when I'm talking about the NBA, and just
I usually pay attention.
just letting you know that
I just don't watch enough of the NBA to remember all the names off of like a mention on the show.
just letting you know also that that's what we do when you talk about the bikes in July. We're just like we kind of just sit here like, okay, Corey's saying stuff. There's Pagacha and a bunch of random names. I don't know these people.
Hey, you remember
Pogacar.
Pogacar, yeah.
Vingago.
No, Pogacar. That's what Pagacha looked like.
Oh, that's a different person.
No.
Or the same person.
No,
Yeah,
Pogacar.
it's Pagacha.
Yeah,
That's how it's pronounced.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Anyway,
I guess.
I'm surprised it doesn't have Wake Forest ranking next to their name on the list. That's usually the case. Anyway,
Anyway, all right. Let's go ahead and move on to the NFL.
the niffle.
The Niffle, yes. Evan, your Ravens in the ACC championship game. Or
AFC
the AFC championship game.
Yes.
My Lions in the NFC championship game.
Yes. Woohoo.
Feels pretty good.
Playing for some hardware this
Yes,
week.
I realized that your team never makes it there. I've seen my team only be there 3 times, but
Yeah.
won a Super Bowl too.
It's okay. We're going to have exactly as many Super Bowls as the Saints have.
I hope you do because that'd be awesome. Like,
We'll see about that.
I'm not counting on it, but it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. So let's talk a little about the games this past week. We'll go in order through the game. So we'll start, Evan, with your Ravens against the Texans. That was the earlier game on Saturday. What were your takeaways from that matchup?
I had to get up and walk around several times because I felt like I was going to stop breathing. Just these
It was a
playoff
close
games.
game in the first half.
Yes, they had us in the first half. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
For some reason, it was tied at 10 at halftime because Houston missed a field goal to take the lead late. And then they went in for halftime, and then the Texans didn't score again. The Ravens scored 24 unanswered points. Apparently, Lamar Jackson had a very impassioned, profanity-laced tirade.
And apparently, Lamar Jackson is good at football.
Yeah, people are surprised about this. Yeah. So the Texans didn't have any plays inside the Ravens' 25-yard line.
The whole game.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, not even the red zone, just
The 25.
the
Red
25.
zone adjacent.
Yeah.
Didn't even get there. Yeah.
They scored their touchdown on a punt return, so that wasn't a typical play from scrimmage. They did get a field goal, and that was from like 50-some yards.
Long field goal.
Yeah.
And that was it. So the defense was suffocating, which was nice to see. The defense was suffocating without forcing any turnovers or getting any sacks. Right?
Yeah,
I
mean, CJ Stroud didn't.
Yeah,
he didn't face a whole lot of pressure, honestly, but
He was
the coverage was
pressured,
very good.
yeah.
He was pressured. He got flushed out of the pocket a lot. And normally, when you see the quarterback escape the pocket, if you're rooting for the team that's on defense, you're holding your breath at that point because you're just like, "Here we go, scramble drill. Someone's gonna get open, and CJ Stroud's a beast. He's gonna make a play." Nobody was getting open.
No, they just
Nico
didn't
Collins
get
had
any
a rough
yards.
game.
Like
Dalton Schultz had a rough game. He had a couple
dropped
catches, but he had a couple of really egregious
he had a
drops
bad
too,
drop against Cleveland.
including an early one in the game. It was like the first. It was like one of the first passes that CJ Stroud threw, and just like stone hands Dalton.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was a like the thing is I watched that game and normally you expect to see when a team only scores 3 offensive points, you expect to see the quarterback play poorly.
CJ Stroud
I didn't see anything
No, he
from
was-
Stroud
he was
to
balling
suggest that
out.
he was doing anything to get overwhelmed. He just had nobody to throw to. He might have sailed a throw or two.
Sure,
But everybody
what
does
quarterback
that.
doesn't
That
do
happens
that?
every game.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
CJ Stroud finished right in the middle of the 8 starting quarterbacks in DYR this week.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's playing the Ravens defense, so he gets a lot of,
It's a little bit of adjustment there, sure.
Yeah, But like even just in terms of even if he was in last, which he wasn't.
No. 3 quarterbacks were below him: Brock Purdy, Baker Mayfield, and Jordan Love.
Yeah, just watching him play though, none of that resembled a quarterback that was struggling. It just
he wasn't the reason they lost.
No, the reason they lost is because the Ravens are just way better than the Texans.
Yeah.
Like that's how.
Yeah, I can't even necessarily say like the defense is the reason they lost, because the defense played okay. Like Will Anderson had a solid game. The defensive line played well. Even the defensive backs were playing decently. It's just that you're facing Lamar Jackson, and he does things that other people can't do.
This Ravens team is one of the best teams ever. Like I said that last week. This is a wagon.
Got to close the deal, though.
Yeah, of course you got to close the deal. Sure. But like the expectation should have been for this game that the Ravens did what they just did to Houston. But we kind of questioned it because the Ravens in the playoffs with Lamar Jackson have not necessarily performed to that standard. But this is also the best version of the Ravens that they've had. Even the 2019 team kind of felt like, okay, yeah, they're 14-2. Lamar's the MVP. The defense is really good. But it kind of felt like you could be figured out. I don't see any real way to figure out this Ravens offense because the strategy was, contain Lamar, keep him in the pocket, make him throw outside the numbers. That's not going to work anymore. Because not only because Lamar's better at it, but Lamar's got better weapons for that purpose now. Like, he can make those throws, and he has the receivers that are able to make the plays. Marquise Brown ain't here anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, Zay Flowers is the real deal.
That was one of the thoughts I had during the game in an attempt to relax, and it didn't work, was that this Ravens team is very multiple. They win so many different ways. It's not just the run game or the pass game or defense or special teams. It's all of it. So all phases don't have to be perfect because we know one of them is going to be great that day.
You know who loves to say that teams are multiple? Your boy, Louis Riddick.
Oh, okay.
He loves to mention.
They are multiple.
It's a good analysis, yeah.
So one thing that I'm going to add to Eric's point about the Ravens maybe being the best team ever.
Well, I didn't say that. I said they're historically good. I didn't say they're the best ever.
I'm going to read just a little bit, a small excerpt of Aaron Schott's article from this DVOA release this week.
Right.
Baltimore's 34-10 win over Houston gets 52% DVOA, which is the Ravens' 7th game over 50% for the season. 4 of those games have come in the last 6, which means that weighted DVOA, which gives more weight to recent games, absolutely loves the Ravens right now, even without adjusting for the fact that they sat starters in Week 18. So this is without adjusting for that. Right now, Baltimore has 55.2% weighted DVOA. This means the Ravens are the first team to ever be above 50% after the divisional round. And they're at 55.2%.
Yeah.
So at very least, they are the hottest team ever at this stage in the season.
Yeah, and also, if you just look at the non-weighted, I'm sure it's extremely impressive too. I mean, it's not like they were bad the first half of the season. Like, that's where they had their losses, but, since Lamar tweeted Johnny, it's been better, but, it's not like they were bad. Like, they played well, they let some games get away from them. Like, even in those games, like, if you look at the DVOA for the specific games, they probably would have said the Ravens should have won. They just blew those games.
Yep.
So
I did look back at the 2019 Ravens roster, and I was like, this team went 14-2, really?
That team felt, like I said it at the time, that team felt like lightning in a bottle. It felt like I remember saying, okay, you guys got to get it done this year or else, because if you come back next year, it's not going to be the same. And it wasn't. Like, Lamar was healthy.
It's never the same.
Lamar was healthy that year. The Ravens were still good. They still made the playoffs, but it wasn't the same team. It's just, you just can't run that back like that when you're when somebody takes the league by storm, there's always going to be a regression. And this Ravens team feels a little bit more stable, right? Like,
There's no Earl Thomas on this Ravens team.
Geez.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, so
what a colossal disappointment he was.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Hall of Famer. And he wasn't a Hall of Famer for y'all.
No.
He was a Hall of Fame doing something else with his brother and certain women, apparently. But, I don't know what he was doing on the field.
He wasn't tackling
away
Derrick
from
Henry.
Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
He turned his back from Derrick Henry after he talked smack about the Patriots not being built forward tough, being able to tackle Derrick Henry. He's like, we're built differently over here. It's like, you're running away from the running back when you're a people
the safety.
tackler. Yeah. You're the guy that's supposed to make sure he doesn't get to the paint.
Yeah.
And
you collapsed Rob Gronkowski's lung,
That's
right?
True. You did, yeah.
Clean hit, by the way. Just
It was a
drilled
clean
him.
hit. Yeah, just crushed him. Yeah. Ended Gronk's season.
I mean,
next game was the later Saturday game between the 49ers and the Packers. As I sort of alluded to a moment ago, both quarterbacks, bottom three quarterbacks in the divisional round, Brock Purdy number 6 out of 8 and Jordan Love number 8 out of 8. To be fair, Jordan Love did still have a positive DYAR at 38, so it's not it's not like he had an awful game. It's the first week this season where the worst quarterback was above 0. So I mean, that's what should happen when you're playing in the postseason. So
Sam Howell's not playing this week.
But still, it was a pretty big drop-off.
Zach Wilson.
Him too.
It was still a pretty big drop-off considering Love had been a top 2 quarterback the previous 2 weeks. So what happened to the Packers in this game? Because they had it.
They blew it.
They had it.
They blew it. That's. I mean, what else can you say? Like, in multiple ways, they blew it because they couldn't catch the easiest interceptions you'll ever see, one of which would have been just a straight line to the end zone for 6. The kicker shanks the field goal that allows the 49ers to win with the touchdown instead of just tying the game, which is huge. And then Love throws, like we in the first half when Love threw that rope off platform right on the money to the sideline for a completion.
What a throw.
Like I was at Looney's and I just heard, that's Aaron Rodgers. That's Aaron Rodgers right there. Well,
they can't keep getting away with this.
And then the last play of the game,
They didn't get away with it.
He throws over the middle across his body, and I was like, that's Brett Favre. That's Brett Favre right
yes,
there.
It is.
Yep. And of course I had some idiot buy me like 4 shots for no reason. Like he just decided that he liked the cut of my jib, I guess, and he kept buying me alcohol.
Okay.
So I was the second half was a little bit of a blur. I wasn't quite paying complete attention to what was going on, but I saw the big plays. Purdy was ass in this game. Like, just
he was shaky.
Like he should have been at the bottom of the pile here if not for those drop picks. Like because he never had a turnover, but that's it. Those picks would have flipped the game and probably would have flipped his numbers too.
I think the things that potentially helped him a little bit are that he had a solid start to the game and he had a decent final drive to the game, and I think that's really what saved him and allowed him to finish up above Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield. Because like for Baker Mayfield, he also had a pretty solid game. It's the 2 interceptions that really killed his DYAR, I think.
Yeah, and one of them wasn't his fault. Like
right,
Mike Evans one.
Yeah, the Mike Evans was not his fault. But I was a little bit surprised with Jordan Love because he did play really well for most of the game.
Yeah, but he had those picks were killer.
But I've talked about this before on the show. I talked about this when we were discussing Brock Purdy's candidacy, as maddening as it was, for the MVP award a few weeks ago. And I said, when he doesn't have all of his pieces, it feels a little over the top to call him a pumpkin, but he kind of turns into one when he doesn't have all of his pieces.
Especially Debo. Like it seems like when Debo goes out, he can't do anything.
Like Debo missed those 2 games, and those were and he was injured during the game prior to those 2, and those were the 3 games that they lost. Those were the 3 games where Purdy was absolute just suckitude.
Plus, they lost to the Ravens, but that's because the Ravens are great.
Well, yeah, sure, but though that was the 3-game stretch where they lost 3 games where they really shouldn't have lost any of those games.
No,
but Debo wasn't gone and Purdy sucked.
Yep, he was bad.
That's kind of what seems to happen. He's a quarterback who makes really good reads when everything is as it's scripted in the game, right? When all of his receivers are where they're supposed to be from what he's studied that week, he seems to do really good.
Who they're supposed to be.
But the problem is when Debo's not out there, that throws everything off because the other receivers aren't going to all be where they need to be, and that puts more pressure from the defense onto Ayuk and onto Kittle.
And the great Jawan Jennings. Can't forget him.
I mean,
shout out Jawan Jennings, who's just amazing.
He got a lot of shout-outs because he had a lot of targets for some reason in that game.
He had a rushing attempt as well.
What else is there to say other than, Cam was right? Cam said Brock Purdy's a game manager.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with being a game manager.
I hate that people take that as an insult to Brock Purdy because it's good to be a game manager. I think pretty much any quarterback
Zach Wilson is not a game manager.
Yeah, right? Any quarterback should aspire to, on some level, be a game manager.
Don't lose it for your team.
It's like 70% of the job at least.
Yes. Yeah. Like, if you have the ability that guys like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have to go and make additional plays outside of that, great. Go and do that when the time comes to make those plays. But you also have to know when to pick your spots, and that's part of managing a game. You have to learn how to run the concepts that your coaches are calling against the defenses that are in front of you. That's part of it. And that's what makes Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and guys of that ilk so good at what they do, is because they can manage that aspect of the game and make game-changing plays on their own.
I mean, we watched Patrick Mahomes roll an ankle early in the playoffs last year, and he basically spent that entire playoff run being a game manager. Like, he didn't get to do the spectacular things because he couldn't move.
Yeah. Although he still managed to do a couple of them in the Super Bowl against the Eagles.
Yeah, he had the big
I
one,
was screaming at the TV, how are you not tackling him?
Yeah, but like, even when he wasn't doing that, it was like, oh, right, Patrick Mahomes, the game manager, is still the best quarterback in football.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so, it didn't matter. It's a huge part of the job, but it's more than just, you could say game manager, whatever. What does that mean? Part of managing the game is also managing your personnel when it changes.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. Like, it's easy to do it when everybody's an all-pro. Say, oh, hey, I get to make wide open throws to Deebo Samuel, or I get to throw check downs to Deebo and he turns them into touchdowns. I get to dump it off to Christian McCaffrey. I get George Kittle open down the seam. Hell, Brandon Ayuk's really good. And he's out there making plays,
Jawan Jennings.
Your boy Jawan Jennings.
Yes.
And I don't want to downplay Brock Purdy because I think he's better than these other quarterbacks, but if you put Mac Jones on that team, if you put Zach Wilson on that team, you can't tell me they're not going to be significantly better than what they've been in New England and New York.
That's probably true.
Yeah. They're also going to be significantly worse than what Brock Purdy's doing.
Yes. And that's why I say I don't want to downplay what Brock Purdy has done because, especially as a guy who was the last pick in the draft, as everybody and their mother knows at this point, like, he has far surpassed expectations.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And he deserves a lot of the accolades that he's getting. He didn't deserve, in my opinion, the high praise of MVP potential or MVP frontrunner that he seemed to be getting. But he deserves a lot of the praise that he gets because he is a very good quarterback. Well, he is. He's a very good quarterback. But he is not elite enough at this point in his career. He has not shown me yet that he can play at that kind of a level when he doesn't have everything perfect.
I mean, you can say
this is Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, he's better than Jimmy G.
I think he is too. But it's Jimmy Garoppolo.
I mean,
look at how well Jimmy Garoppolo played in that offense run by Kyle Shanahan with not quite the same level of weapons, because you have to consider they didn't have a Christian McCaffrey. They had some good running backs. They had some very fast running backs, but they did not have anybody who came close to holding a candle to Christian McCaffrey on any of those offenses.
Yeah, but Jimmy Garoppolo never looked as good as Purdy either. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo, you had to close your eyes every time he threw the ball because he was trying to throw the game away. Purdy feels like most of the time he goes out there, he knows what he's doing.
Yes.
But you mentioned Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, the rum dummies of the NFL. But if you replace Brock Purdy with somebody that's like sort of that middle class of quarterbacks, like a Kirk Cousins or a Baker Mayfield, you can't tell me that they wouldn't have similar production.
I would argue that somebody like Kirk Cousins would have much better production. I think Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. I think that Baker Mayfield is probably on a very similar tier. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who I would put above or below
Baker
the
has
other
a higher ceiling but a lower floor.
I would agree with that. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like there are quarterbacks out there that could do what Brock Purdy's doing, but there are also a lot that can't.
Yeah.
Right. Like there are.
That's again, don't want to downplay what Purdy is doing because he is an above average quarterback. I think he might be a top 10 quarterback.
It's tough to actually rank him given the advantages he has.
It's also kind of tough when you have so many solid to good quarterbacks who were hurt this year and we didn't get to see the whole season for them.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's go ahead and move on to the Sunday games, and we'll start with my Lions hosting the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield threw a couple of interceptions. The early one to CJ a little bit of a high pass, but catchable by Mike Evans. Just went right through his hands, popped up, and easy pickings for the secondary. The second interception came on the final drive, and Barnes just cut the route, and it was a bad throw. I mean, he had the coverage. Like,
Baker forced it.
Yeah, there was no reason to force that pass.
Yeah. Other than the fact that they were losing and they needed to get down the field.
Sure. Meanwhile, on the other side, Jared Goff, another game of turnover-free football. He just seems to be very calm right now. We'll get to what's coming up this coming weekend in a little bit, but that I've seen multiple reports from people who were in the game, reporters who were at the game, saying this was one of the most overwhelming home field advantages that they have ever seen in football.
Sounded like it was loud on TV.
It got up to 145.3 decibels,
145,
which is a Ford Field record.
Sounds like it should be in any field.
People talked about
Arrowhead got up
people
to like
talked about the fact that they have never been in a venue that was that loud when the opposing team was on offense and that silent when the home team was on offense. They were like, I don't think that there's a Buccaneers fan here. That's how quiet it was when the Lions were on offense. Mm-hmm. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Maybe the Buccaneers heeded that warning from the question to Todd Bowles about the frigid temperatures in Detroit and how they're going to handle that.
The game set a record for viewership for a divisional playoff game. In fact, it might have been a viewership record for any non-Super Bowl playoff game in recent NFL history, or maybe in all of NFL history. People really tuned into that game, and it was a fun game. I mean, it was close. It came down to the wire. It was an 8-point win. The Lions ended up beating the spread, which all of us had, but it was getting a little bit dicey toward the end.
Came down to that 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Significant to some.
But it was anybody's game down to essentially the last possession. I want to talk a little bit about the very, very end of the game, because the Lions kneeled the ball with like 19 seconds on the play clock. It was like 30-something seconds left in regulation.
Yeah, they messed this up.
And the Buccaneers didn't have a time, or they had one timeout remaining, and they didn't call it. The Lions knelt to make it 4th down. There were like 30-some seconds left, and they didn't call that timeout. The Lions were in field goal range. Figure they're going to kick the field goal. Michael Badgley's a pretty good kicker, but it's not a gimme. It wasn't from like 30 yards. It would have been like a 40-something yard field goal, I believe.
The dude had struggled to hit any kicks from 50 yards all season.
Yeah, and he struggled for most of his career from 50 plus.
Right,
he's been like a 60-something, 70, low 70s% kicker.
I don't know
what
his percentage is, but like the kick was far enough where it was.
It's not a gimme.
Yeah.
So
if it was a gimme, you got to play out the game.
So it could have still been an 8-point game. So I didn't really care for Bowles' explanation after the game of it was over. Like, we were going to be down by 11. So what's the point? No, like you don't know that you were going to be down by 11. That's the whole point.
Make them make the field goal, dude.
It could have still been an 8-point game, and you could have had the ball.
What if it gets blocked and taken to the house?
You would have had 30 seconds. You never know what can happen.
Yeah.
So that was bizarre.
That was bad with the snap.
That could happen.
I also didn't care for Dan Campbell's kind of brief comment during the post-game presser. I was looking over, at first he like took responsibility as like, we kind of messed up the way that we handled that at the end. We should have taken more time off. But then he also said, but I was looking over there and I knew that he wasn't going to call it.
That was such BS. I was like,
what?
He was just
you can't have it both ways. You can't have it like we messed this up, but I also knew that he was going to mess it up. Well, if you knew that, then you didn't mess it up. So which is it? And also, how about you just run, do it the way you're supposed to do it? Why are you running that play with 19 seconds on the play clock?
Yeah, also, you needed to throw in some run plays there just to peel off a couple more seconds so you never had to potentially give up possession.
So that was a little bit frustrating because
messed that up a lot.
I once again, just like I did last week, I stayed off of my phone. I stayed off my laptop for the entire game. Well, Steven noticed.
I noticed
Drew,
last week
Drew
and
noticed.
this week.
But
I noticed Evan wasn't there for the Ravens.
But last week I jumped on as soon as we were under 2 minutes, and I knew that it was just gonna be a kneel down, and that was gonna be it. So I got on my phone. Say that after Barnes had the interception, I got on my phone because at that point technically it wasn't over, but I knew that we could run enough of the time off that it was done.
Yeah.
And then we didn't do that. And I'm like, what are we doing?
Nope.
This is like a University of Miami situation this year against Georgia Tech, where they're running a play inexplicably instead of taking a knee and figuring out how to lose.
This is kind of the opposite of that, though, where it's like teams do this all the time, where it's just like, oh, let's say there's 2 minutes left, or let's say 140, and teams say, okay, the other team's got one timeout. So we're going to take 3 knees. Okay, kneel down, call timeout, like 1 second comes off the clock. And then you take 2 knees, there's still like 19 seconds left. I'm like, why didn't you run actual plays so that you could take off all of the time?
Yeah.
Like it's
just hand it off.
Yeah, like hand it off, cover it up.
Or QB run it or whatever.
Yeah, or scramble around for a little bit, do something weird.
Take a safety on purpose.
I mean, you could do. It's just people like Bill Belichick messed this up against Evans Ravens back in 2014. Like after Flacco threw the pick, like he threw a deep ball, got picked off, and that should have been the game. And they went out there and they took knees instead of running the ball. And so the Ravens ended up getting the ball back. They got a decent return on the punt that the Patriots had to have, and they got a shot at a Hail Mary. Like, they didn't convert it, but the fact that they're even in that position was ridiculous.
The Lions' defense wasn't great in the game, but Aaron Glenn dialed up some very well-timed blitzes. We had 2 straight possessions pretty much by the Buccaneers ended on slot corner blitzes from opposite sides of the field.
Yep.
I thought that those were well-timed. We had the one play where I think it was Aiden Hutchinson like somehow got a free release on Baker Mayfield, and Mayfield like double clutched the throw, and that gave Aiden that extra split second to get to him and sack him. So, some well-timed blitzes. I'm a little bit nervous, kind of showing that card in this game where now the 49ers are going to be a little more ready for that, and their offensive line is probably not going to allow those free blitzes as much. So that's going to put a little more pressure on our guys to play coverage. Our run defense was not as good as it was supposed to be, not as good as it has been for most of the season. We're going up against somehow one of the worst running offenses in the NFL, which makes absolutely no sense when you have Rachaad White on your team. How they were averaging less than 80 yards per game on the ground this season is... I was beside myself when I saw that stat. I'm like, you have Rachaad White. Why were you not running the ball more during the season? So that's an issue with their offense that they are going to need to address going into next year, because there's no excuse for that. Rachaad White is a beast. He's a very good running back.
No, it also needs to be said, shout out to Baker Mayfield, because he got himself paid this season for sure. Like,
he's earned a payday for sure.
Like the thing is,
he's resurrected his career.
Like the thing with Baker is, you got to give him his due in the sense that, again, he's kind of in that middle class of quarterbacks with, the guys that are pretty good but not, franchise
like I said,
guys.
I put him and Purdy on a very similar level. They're above average quarterbacks.
But like the guy that I want in, like, if I have a team where it's like, oh, I just need a competent quarterback and I have a chance to win the Super Bowl because I've got a great roster. If I have one to pick, I'm picking Baker, because he's shown consistently at all levels he elevates in the playoffs. Like his postseason performances from when he was in Cleveland, he dominated that Steelers team. And
or was that in the Rose Bowl in 2017 or whatever?
Who'd they play in that game?
I mean, who do you think they played?
They played Georgia, and they put up how many points? A whole bunch?
Yeah.
Yeah, Baker played pretty good in that game, didn't he?
I mean,
Oklahoma had a Big 12 defense, and they just didn't win.
Goodness gracious.
To tell you.
They blew it.
Yeah, and then you fell asleep for the championship game and missed what could have been a life-defining moment for you. And
that would have been amazing.
To see it.
No, I went to bed.
Anyway, but Baker's, like, he's got that, like, we talked about, people wilting under pressure, specifically the Cowboys last week, because, it's easy to make fun of them. But Baker doesn't do that, and there are a lot of guys like Brock Purdy. To me, hasn't proven that he doesn't do that, because I thought you saw some of that this week against the Packers. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that he's got. I'm not writing him off as a guy who chokes. I'm saying that it's hard to be that guy, especially when you're not that talented. But Baker doesn't care.
Well, so let me show you these DYAR numbers. So Brock Purdy in the first half against Green Bay, 51 DYAR. Mm-hmm. In the second half, 0.
Mm-hmm.
That said, Baker Mayfield, 95 DYAR on first downs, minus 55 passing, and minus 21 on second down, and minus 21 on third down.
What am I supposed to do with that information?
That kind of comes down to whether a guy is clutch or not, whether he turns it up in the moments that matter the most or not.
I watched him drive like 93 yards on your defense with like a minute and a half to go to tie the game.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that wasn't clutch.
A lot of that was first downs.
Doesn't matter.
And that's fair. And that's a fair point.
First down counts too.
It was still in the fourth quarter. It's still clutch. That's fair.
It doesn't sound like the Lions even got him to third down, right?
Like he still put up 23 points.
Well, we got those sacks were almost all on third down. I think one of them might have been second down.
On third down because you're going to have to punt anyway. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like he's not a guy who backs down. And
he's not.
That's the kind of guy I want. Like, is he the best quarterback in the league? Hell no. But is he?
Does he believe he is?
Does he? Yeah, he probably believes he is, or something close to it. And you kind of need that a little bit. You kind of need.
Yeah, it's good to have that confidence.
Yeah.
The 6:30 game on Sunday was Bills hosting the Chiefs, as everybody knew. The first time that the great Patrick Mahomes was playing on the road in the playoffs.
I love how this became a narrative, like that Patrick Mahomes can't win on the road in the playoffs because he never did, even though he never had to.
They also really tried to push the Brady Manning narrative. This is the third time they're playing against each other, and Peyton lost the first two before winning the second one, and it was in his seventh season or whatever. And that's what Josh Allen is.
He lost the first two on the road, and then he got to host in the RCA Dome. I think it was still called that at the time.
Yeah.
They were really pushing that narrative, and at the end, it looked more like Tom Brady and Phillip Rivers.
That's because that's what it is. Josh Allen's not Peyton Manning. Like, are you kidding me? Peyton Manning's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
And Phillip Rivers is still a very good quarterback.
Phillip Rivers is going to the Hall of Fame, but he's not Peyton Manning. Like, what are we talking about? Like, if anybody in this...
How do you spell for the title?
They're just inarticulate noise. Just go with that. Anyway, like the thing is, if there's anybody that would be Peyton Manning as an analogy to Patrick Mahomes being Tom Brady, the only guy that logically makes some sense is Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson's about to win his second MVP. He's the only guy that's risen to the level of I'm the best player on the planet in a season. Mahomes has done it twice, which is obviously different from early Brady. Brady didn't win his first MVP till like his seventh season, but it doesn't change the fact that the elite awards, the big-time trophies that you get, the MVP awards, that's the type of stuff that defines an NFL resume when you go into the Hall of Fame. That's the type of stuff they put on your plaque.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen ain't got that. Okay, I'm not saying he's not good. I'm not saying he's not one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league. I'm not saying that he hasn't built a pretty solid case himself as if this is his prime and he continues this for another few years, you could end up putting him in the Hall of Fame too, just like they're going to put Phillip Rivers in the Hall of Fame. Oh, yeah. But there are levels to this.
Yes, yeah. And
Phillip Rivers is a lower echelon Hall of Fame quarterback, whereas Peyton Manning is at the front of the friggin' line.
Yes. So Patrick Mahomes gets yet another playoff win. He has made it to the AFC Championship game 6 times in the 6 years that he has been the starting quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs.
It's almost like he's good.
Almost.
Yeah.
Something like that. Good-ish.
Mm-hmm. Good-ish.
Y'all know what, I think you guys had the same regret pick as me, which but I kind of
you sort of prefaced it last week, and I was like, so you're taking the Chiefs? You're like, no. And I was like, why not? You just talked yourself into it, and then you didn't do it
because I didn't. I still worried that this Chiefs team didn't look the part all year.
Yeah,
I should have remembered that. 2021, the 13 seconds game, that Chiefs offense didn't look the part most of the year either. That was a down year for them too because they were getting fooled by the 2 high safety looks all year long.
Yeah.
Mahomes was getting frustrated, throwing picks. The rejuvenation of that offense seems to always come against the Bills in the playoffs because I looked it up. They've played 7 times since Josh Allen got good. 4 times in the regular year, 3 times in the playoffs.
Yep.
We know how the 3 playoff games went in terms of who won. But you look at, obviously, twice those were rematches.
Yeah.
Right? Actually, all 3 times they were rematches, I think. Yeah, 2020, it was
Sounds
a rematch.
right.
Oh, okay.
The Kansas City won. They beat Buffalo in Buffalo, but there were no fans, so it was basically...
got it, yeah.
And then they played in Arrowhead, and the Bills got slammed in that game.
Yep.
And then the next year was the 13 seconds game. The Bills blew out the Chiefs in Arrowhead. It was 38-20. And then they got into a shootout. And then this year, let's talk about last year too. They played in Arrowhead again. They won 24-20. A pretty low scoring game given the level of these quarterbacks and these offenses. And then this year they beat them 2017. Every year they've had a rematch, the Chiefs come out and score at least 10 more points the second time around. What does that say? It says that Andy Reid is out-coaching Sean McDermott.
Yeah, they're making adjustments, and the Bills are not.
Did the Chiefs look like they had any trouble at all moving the ball? They were averaging 9 yards per play until the kneel downs.
Yeah.
And then last year, or 2 years ago when they had the 13 seconds game, what happened to the defense that kept this offense contained? It disappeared. Again, Chiefs had no trouble moving the ball. They were moving the ball all damn game long.
They got 50 yards in 2 plays.
Yeah. It's just like, you can't tell me there's nothing wrong here. Okay?
Just jam somebody at the line or just hold them or something, right?
Yeah.
Just grab them.
Like,
right? Let the time expire. You're going to get the one untimed down, but you can't kick an 80-yard field goal.
I will reiterate that
do something.
I think that this version of the Bills needs to end. It's like the main pieces of this team. The head coach who's a defensive-minded guy, mind you, is getting his ass kicked by his chief rivals coach every time out in a rematch, and they're always going to play each other. And then Stephon Diggs straight up looks like he's quit on this team. He was garbage, pathetic, and uninterested in this football game. And he's been like that for most of the year.
And to be, again, like I mentioned this a week or two ago, there seemed to be a situation where sometime around like week 7-ish, he popped up for a day on the injury report with a back injury. And that seems to line up with when he started to kind of look the part of not really being at 100%. That's when his production really seemed to tail off this season. And so I don't know how much of all this has to do with that. But you're right. In this game, it didn't even look like he was really trying to fight through anything. He just kind of gave up.
And he looked like he was on the Eagles, right? Like that sort of going through the motions level of effort.
Yeah, it's just, and all season and even dating back to the end of last year, the diva version of Stephon Diggs was front and center. He was making a lot of noise. He was complaining a lot. He was histrionics on the sidelines, things like that. And I'm like, that has an effect. And, the Chiefs, or the Bills' defense was supposed to be sort of the thing they invested in, which, they kind of left Josh Allen out to dry. Josh Allen played pretty well in this game. He messed up the last drive without a doubt. Like, there's no excuse for what he did after the 2-minute warning. That was just YOLO Josh coming out at the worst time. But other than, they basically asked him to do everything, and he almost did it. But eventually, you got to give this guy a break, right? Like, he's not as good as Patrick Mahomes. Okay, so if you ask him to go out there and outplay him and then some, because not only are you not matching the Chiefs and what they do, you're outright getting beat by them consistently. So now Josh Allen has to be Superman. Well, he makes mistakes sometimes. That's part of the package with Josh Allen, is he's going to make some decisions that are going to make you scratch your head. You got to have some ability to let him be himself and afford to have those moments where things might go wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with that. One of the main reasons that I put the Bills as my regret pick of the week is because specifically I picked them to lose or to win by 10.
Yeah.
Oh.
So like
I should have lost by 10.
Yeah, like I said it with my chest last week. Bills are going to win this game because they were coming in that game really hot.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs, they just hadn't really been that impressive. But you're right. I mean, Sean McDermott just can't coach. I don't know what's going on there because early on in his tenure with Buffalo, I was like, man, this guy's really good. Like he's doing a bang up job with this team. Mm-hmm. But at this point, he's feeling sort of like the way that you described Russell Westbrook when he got to the Wizards as, he is a floor raiser. He's not a ceiling raiser.
Yeah. He
took this team that was absolute garbage and made them, somewhat competitive. But is he the guy who can actually take them to the next level? Because at this point, it doesn't seem like it.
It also just seems like the decisions the organization has made as a whole, like I said, to not like.
Well, let's talk about one specific decision that the organization made, and that was to send the draft pick to the Chiefs that they turned around and got Patrick Mahomes with.
And people,
and now Patrick Mahomes is kicking their ass every single postseason.
Yes, like I got into it on Twitter. It was like some guy was
you got into it on Twitter with somebody.
Shocker that this happened. Okay. But like he basically said, nah, Bills fan, we're happy with Josh Allen. We love Josh Allen. I'm like,
you can be happy with Josh Allen while also recognizing that
he's got some deficiencies.
Yeah,
he's also not as good as the other guy.
Well, and the thing is, even if Josh Allen was as good as Patrick Mahomes, which he's not, the fact is you facilitated the most brilliant offensive mind of the 21st century being able to draft an uber-talented quarterback. the results were maybe not this level of predictable. We didn't think they were going to win, and go to the AFC Championship game.
I didn't have particularly high expectations for Patrick Mahomes. Well, then again, I also didn't have very high expectation for Josh Allen, so I kind of missed on both of them.
Yeah, but the thing is, and again, it's not like, I'm not saying the Bills should have seen this coming, this definitely is going to happen. We're going to lose all these playoff games to this guy. But we could still make fun of you for the fact that it happened this way. We're allowed to do a little hindsight as 2020 here and say, gee, if you could go back in your time machine that doesn't exist and undo that trade, would you do it? They absolutely would.
And if your answer is no, then I don't know.
You're incapable of learning from your mistakes.
Yes. This goofball was trying to say, no, I would have changed other things they did after that. I'm like, the most important thing that has happened is you gave the best quarterback to the best coach, and now you keep losing to that team. If you undo that, everything else fixes itself. You probably go to the Super Bowl in 2021 if Patrick Mahomes is playing for the Bears or somebody else. Or the Browns. Because they would have messed him up too.
Yeah. Or the Jets.
Yeah, or the Jets. Or somebody else that would have picked it. Now, you gave him to Andy Reid, and you bragged about how big of a haul you got back in return because they traded up 17 spots. And I'm like, yeah, well, guess what? Now they've got a guy that is on the short list for the greatest quarterback of all time, and he's killing you every year.
I do want to mention, though, there was that one Bills fan who went viral for crying as the game was ending. I feel bad for him not only because, he loves his Bills and they lost again in heartbreaking fashion to the same guy again, but it's just, it just sucks, right? And if you are a fan of any team and this type of thing is happening to you and you're not as distraught as him, then I question if you're a real fan or not, right? Are you feeling it that strongly? Or we lost again to the same guy again. And, we never won anything ever in this freezing cold town with no nice hotels in it.
And then all of a sudden, work tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
That's the
now I've got to shovel my car out of the snow because it snowed above the car.
Helped the team 2 weeks in a row, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. For $20.
$20 an hour and free lunch. Woo.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. Love that.
Right. You go through all that stuff and you lose anyway. It's oh my God.
No, it should have been, if y'all win the Super Bowl, I get a ring too,
and I get to fill all the executives' houses with the snow that we shoveled out of this godforsaken stadium.
Yes. I mean,
and they're building a new stadium across the street.
They are.
The problem with the current stadium is the location.
I mean, Marshawn Lynch's favorite spot was the Applebee's.
It needs to be a quarter mile to the west.
In the lake?
I'm lost.
Or to the east,
lake. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess technically
east, not west. Yeah. But last thing on the Bills, I guess, is this kind of reminds me. It doesn't kind of. Right? It reminds me exactly of the Capitals and the Penguins in hockey. Oh. And for those who are unaware, when the Capitals and the Penguins played in the regular season, throughout the height of Crosby versus Ovechkin, the Capitals usually kicked their ass in the regular year. It wasn't the case of the Penguins just had their number all the time or the better team. Mm-hmm. No, the Capitals usually won those matchups in the regular season. Then came to the playoffs, and somehow, some way, they would always lose. And so at some point, you just got to wonder, how mentally damaged are these players when they go up against this team at this point? I mean, they're not just losing the games where it's oh, wow, we got our ass whooped. We just weren't good enough. No, you're losing games where you had a chance to win. And it's ending your season, in your opinion, prematurely. At some point, that's got to weigh on you. I just can't imagine that it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, the year the Capitals won the Stanley Cup, did they have to go through
They Pittsburgh? Went through the Penguins. That was why it was such a big deal. But the Penguins were not particularly good that year. The Capitals were hot.
Because we also went through the Rangers that year, and the Rangers had ended our postseasons a couple of times in recent seasons before that.
We didn't beat the Rangers in that playoff run.
Oh, we did? Okay.
No, and and the Rangers, when they beat the Caps, were always a lot better than the Caps.
Fair.
Right? That was always if the Caps win, this is a pretty nice upset. And they would always make it close, and then
they went to Game 7. Yeah. At least one of those years, I was
did it go to overtime in Game 7 or something? I remember tuning in. Yeah. I watched hockey.
Yeah, it was
Overtime in Game 7
in 2015.
Isn't like golden goal too? As soon as somebody scores, it's just over.
It's over. Yep. It's insane. It's a lot of fun to watch.
But it's also lost them in Game 7 in like 2012 or 2013.
They've lost a lot of Game 7s. Yeah. They lost Game 7 to the Rangers in 2013. They lost Game 7 to the Rangers in 2012. They lost Game 7 to the Rangers in 2015.
And 2012 might have been the one I was watching.
Yeah, that was rough fun. Yeah. But again, that was a 7 versus 2 matchup, and the Caps were the 7. Yeah. So
okay.
So anyway, so all of our regret picks to the Bills. Proudest picks for this past week.
Well, I
had an easy one because I was the only one who got a lone wolf win. I went with the Packers. I don't know what y'all were thinking. 9.5 points. Had it all the way.
Yeah. The Niners are a wagon, right? Like they're really good.
The Niners have been really good, but the Packers came into that game so hot. Love was playing great football. Like the receivers have been stepping up over the last month or so. Like this is the youngest team in the NFL. It's the youngest wide receiver core to be in the playoffs, I think, ever. Like you got Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, is it Dontavian Wicks?
Sure.
Something
you
Wicks.
know these people.
I'm pretty sure it's Dontavian Wicks.
No.
Right? You've got these guys who are all, really young and stepping up. You had the number 3 or 4 DYR among pass catchers this past week. Try and remember this name going forward, Bo Melton. Y'all ever heard of him before? No. Probably not. But he was the top Green Bay Packers receiver by DYR this week. That's before we even get to a guy who we thought was going to be the wide receiver 1 in that offense this year because he was really good last year, but he nowhere to be found. Christian Watson. Where's this guy been?
On the bench.
Yeah. So
in the ice tub.
I kind of felt like the Packers. I didn't necessarily think the Packers had a shot to win. I was a little bit surprised at that aspect of it. But I knew that the 49ers were not just going to roll them. If they managed to make it, if they managed to beat that spread, it was going to be, by the skin of their teeth and on something crazy at the end. The one that kind of surprised me was that Houston rolled over the way they did in the second half and allowed a game that they should have covered based on where they were at halftime to get that out of hand. Like all of us had the Texans against the spread. That was the same spread. It was a 9.5 game.
Yeah.
So
I feel like the Niners should have rolled and didn't, right? Like they're, Purdy kind of clammed up a little bit or something. Deebo Samuel got hurt and missed the end of the game. Like, it's a lot of stuff that doesn't usually happen to them happened on Saturday night.
I mean, they should have lost the game.
They probably should have lost. They didn't look great. The Packers gave it all they could handle.
And Eric, you put the Packers defense as your most surprising.
I was surprised that they were as effective as they are because they haven't been a particularly good defense most of the year. And,
they were a defense that coming into the season. They were supposed to be pretty good.
Yeah, they were. And
they were okay last year, and they had added some pieces. I projected them to be a top 8 fantasy defense when we were going into draft season. It's part of the reason why I drafted them, and then I wound up using them like once or twice all season because
they weren't doing nothing.
They weren't doing anything. The problem was they had all these juicy matchups, and I didn't want anybody else to get them, so I had to just keep them on my bench all season. It was driving me nuts. Your proudest pick, Eric, was the Lions.
Well, it's the only one I got right, so I had to pick that one. What do you want me to do?
I thought you got 2 right. You guys both got 2 right, and I got 3, I thought. Or did I go 2 and 2, and you guys went 1 and 3?
I whiffed on the Ravens because I picked the Texans to cover. I whiffed on we all whiffed on the Bills because we picked them to cover when they lost.
Oh, yeah, and then you got the 49ers wrong. So, I went 2 and 2, and you all went 1 and 3.
That's the only one I got right, so that's my proudest one.
There you go.
Oh, I forgot to fill this in. I thought this was left over from last week, to be honest.
Yeah. All right, so quick best and worst of divisional round. Patrick Mahomes was the best quarterback with 169 DYR. Love was the worst with 38. Best running back by total DYR. For whatever reason in the playoffs, Aaron Schatz is not dividing them into total and rushing only. So best by total was Jahmyr Gibbs at 62. Worst was James Cook at -9. And the best pass catcher was Travis Kelce at 45. Right behind him was Mike Evans at 44 somehow, despite that dropped pass that went for an interception. I guess that doesn't count against wide receivers.
The pick doesn't count against him.
In that case, it should. They need to fix that.
They also don't get dinged for drops. They get dinged for the fact that it was an incomplete pass targeting him. Like Baker could have overthrown him or dirtballed. I
think you should get dinged more for a drop than just for a regular.
You got to understand DVOA doesn't watch the games. It's an outcome-based thing.
Yeah, but they do track drops, so like you could add.
I understand that they
formula.
track drops, but that's not what they do.
Okay.
Because the thing is, like historic data, you can't track drops because you don't have that.
Fair.
Like, that's all based on box scores.
Gotcha.
And play-by-plays.
Stephon Diggs was the worst at -30. We already talked about the fact that he seemed to not really want to be out there.
I realized that Josh
cold.
Allen on that deep ball throw, he underthrew it and was late on it.
It's in the hands,
Should have
man.
caught it, man. Catch the ball.
Want to congratulate Sean Kennedy, friend of the show. He came on back in the preseason to talk a little bit of DC Defenders. We'll have to have him back on at some point as we get ready for the UFL? UFL.
United
The
Football
UFL.
League?
Yeah, in about a month or so.
None of.
No, I'm not going to watch that.
We'll bring him on to talk about it a little bit, but he went 4-0 this past weekend in picks.
Oh, so he doesn't listen to us.
You smart?
Yeah, he was smart. Yeah.
Still submits his picks, though.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see if he can get a 2-0 record this week with the Chiefs at the Ravens and the Lions at the 49ers. As I mentioned in the intro, we're not going to pick these games today. We're going to wait until tomorrow after the 5:00 p.m. lines drop for Wednesday. But just as a quick update on where those lines sit right now on Tuesday evening, the Ravens currently favored by 3.5. The 49ers currently favored by 7. I can tell you if that line holds, I'm definitely taking the Lions because I think that they're going to at least make this a close game. I think that whether the Lions, well, we'll talk about them one at a time. We'll go in order. So let's start with the Chiefs-Ravens game. That's the 3:30 game.
3 o'clock.
Or 3 o'clock, thank you, on CBS. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo calling that one.
Here we go, Jim.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With the line as it is right now, which way are you leaning, right? Not saying you need to like lock in this pick. If it's the same line tomorrow and you pick the other team, that's fine. But where are you leaning at this moment?
I mean, I'm ready to lock the picks in because, I'm not going to think about it again and be, tossing and turning. Like, what about this and what about this, right? Like, it's whatever. So,
what if the line moves like 2 points in one direction or the other?
I mean, that's fine.
Okay.
I
You go
lean
ahead and
Kansas
lock your
City
picks in.
because,
Emotionally hedging.
I'm emotionally hedging and maybe I'm masochistic or something, but this Ravens team's trying to kill me. We got to keep it close all the time.
Just won a playoff game by 24 points. What are you talking about?
Well, it was tied at 10 at halftime.
Okay, this is football, man. It happens.
Yeah. So,
This is why you play 60 minutes.
Yeah, I do appreciate a nice tidy outcome.
You got one.
We did get one, and it still wasn't
You wanted to
comfortable
score touchdowns. You wanted to beat Josh Allen against the Patriots.
against Mac Jones.
Yeah,
Yes,
just every time you get the ball, touchdown. Okay.
or Georgia Tech versus Cumberland College.
There you go.
Might feel comfortable in that one.
I'd love to see that. I mean, something else.
Yeah.
Over-under set at 44.5. What do we think of that line?
44.5.
It seems a little lean. I mean, I
It
realize.
seems low.
I mean, the Chiefs' defense is legitimately good.
Yeah.
Like that's something that's sort of been an underrated aspect of the game. Like we kind of wrote the Chiefs off as a genuine AFC contender because their offense isn't quite what it once was, but their offense is still good enough to be like a top 10 unit in the NFL, and their defense is good enough to be top 5. Like that sounds like a team that could win a championship. But like the main thing is I don't doubt the Chiefs are legit. You obviously can't count out Patrick Mahomes because he's the best quarterback in football. But this Ravens team is a wagon. Like they don't have flaws as far as I'm concerned. And I think that, ultimately when you look at the gap in DVOA, especially weighted DVOA, it makes it feel kind of ridiculous to say, hey, I think the Chiefs can cover a 3.5 point line. It's just it's too light. Like I get it. You have to have a Patrick Mahomes tax in there. You can't just sit there and give Patrick Mahomes a touchdown. That's ridiculous. Because everybody's going to be hammering, give me the points. But that doesn't mean that Mahomes is immune to losing to a team that's way better than his. And we saw what happened in the Super Bowl against the Bucs, where everybody the Chiefs were favored in that game. And after the first drive, it was immediately apparent they shouldn't have been because their offensive line did not exist in that game, and the Bucs pass rush was tremendous. It was obvious immediately, well, we have erred with this decision. I feel like Mahomes is getting the benefit of the doubt because he's great. I think there's still going to be a level of exposure here just because you're playing too good of a team. So I'm leaning Baltimore.
It's going to be much warmer this week for this game.
Yeah, which is part of the reason why I'm a little bit surprised at the low over-under. I mean, that's basically an implied 24-21 game.
It might rain
in favor of Baltimore, and sure, it might rain, but you've got one of the best running quarterbacks in the game with still a solid run game at his disposal, who can also throw the ball. You've got Isaiah Likely, who's playing his ass off. You've got Zay Flowers, who's playing really well. You've got Odell Beckham, who, he kind of comes and goes within the course of a game, but he's going to make a play or two. He seems to be doing it at least once or twice a game. You got Nelson Aguilar actually making catches. Catching touchdowns, no less. Yes.
Scott Bateman showed up a little bit this week, too. You know,
Mark Andrews might be coming back.
Ewing theory. I'm just kidding about that.
We'll have to talk about that in the offseason. What are we going to do about Mark Andrews? Because Isaiah Likely seems like a guy. He's a dude.
He's a dude. He's definitely a dude.
Yeah, they're going to have to find a way to incorporate him into that offense if they're still going to have Mark Andrews around.
Sounds like it could be awesome to have two tight end sets. That sounds great.
It could be interesting.
Yeah. More big boys on the field.
And then on the other side, you've got the Chiefs. And, Isaiah Pacheco had a rough wild card game, but he played well this past week. He bounced back all right. So
everybody on the Chiefs played well. They were doing whatever they wanted. Bill's defense was
that's going to be the thing that I think is the difference maker here, which is why I'm with Eric. I'm definitely leaning Ravens here. I think it's going to be really difficult for you look at some of the guys who are making plays for the Chiefs, and you got Marquez Valdes-Scantling making plays out there. You can't tell me that the Ravens defense is not going to lock him down.
Yeah, this is the first time he did anything all year. And again, they're playing the Bills, who always find a way to screw this up.
Yes. I'm sure Travis Kelce's going to get his because he's going to find the open spots in the field, but he's also not been as effective over the course of the second half of the season as he was even in the first half of the season.
And again, he got his against the Bills because the Bills didn't have any linebackers. They were screwed. The Ravens have excellent linebackers.
Yeah,
so.
And I still expect that Travis Kelce is going to get some open looks.
He's not going to shut down.
But that's largely going to come from they're probably going to have to scheme him open in ways that are going to make it a little more difficult for the receivers to get to spots where they're open. And I don't think that the Chiefs are built to beat this Ravens defense. And the Chiefs defense, as strong as it's been for most of the season, I don't think they're going to have an answer for Lamar.
I hope y'all are right, but I don't feel like that.
I think the Ravens are going to score at least 30 in this game. And I'm not saying that I would predict the Chiefs to be held under 20, but it wouldn't shock me if they don't get to 20. Or if they barely get there.
I mean, we watched a supposed wagon team in the 49ers play the same Ravens defense at home, and they got absolutely destroyed. This Chiefs team isn't on their level.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah. This line would have to move significantly for me to move off the Ravens. I'm talking, it would have to get. If this was Ravens minus 6.5, I'd probably still take the Ravens.
I mean,
oh my!
I think what is obvious is the Ravens, if they play like their typical game, like their standard quality game, they're not no out of body experience here, just normal Ravens football this year in 2023, not 2024, and the Chiefs do the same. The Ravens win by 20 points. It's not close.
Yeah.
This is it's such a gap in how good the Ravens are compared to the Chiefs. That doesn't mean that the Ravens won't lay an egg. They're very capable of doing that. Any football team can have a bad week. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that the Chiefs aren't going to have some ridiculous game where they just go off. But I got to play the odds here,
Yeah.
Like, the odds say that if the Ravens play anything close to their best, the Chiefs can't beat them.
Yeah. Lions 49ers. That's a 6:30 game. That is on Fox. So that'll be
Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen.
Who
is awesome, by the way. Greg Olsen is great.
Greg Olsen's been kind of lately.
I'm surprised you like him. I think he's great too.
He's been really bad over the last few weeks.
Really bad?
Really bad?
Yeah, he's great. He's had some really rough takes. Anyway.
He did have a really bad take. I remember he said something ridiculous. I can't remember what it is.
Was it in that commercial where he was wearing the wig?
It wasn't in a commercial. It was in the game.
No, he said something. It was about a quarterback, and he suggested that. Or no, it was Mike McCarthy shouldn't be fired. That's what he said.
Well, he said that, but he also put Brock Purdy up there with
Lamar?
I forget what it was
Patrick
now.
Mahomes?
Peyton Manning.
I'm struggling
Tennessee.
now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to go back and look it up.
Tom
In
Brady,
any case,
Michigan.
49ers currently laying 7 points at home. And over-under at 50.5, so significantly higher than the Ravens-Chiefs over-under. That basically puts the 49ers in an implied total of roughly 29 points, and the Lions at roughly 22 points.
Weather's supposed to be nice. It's supposed to be like 70-something and sunny. So like the complete opposite of Saturday night.
So this is going to be an interesting game. This is one where we're really going to have to watch, and when we make the picks even tomorrow, we're most likely not going to have the benefit of knowing for sure what's going to happen with Deebo Samuel, because it seems like right now that's roughly a 50-50 shot that he plays this weekend.
Seems pretty injured.
And
what happened? What was wrong with him?
Shoulder injury. Yeah.
Oh,
so he's hurt. Even if he does play, we don't know how effective he can be. He'll at least spread the defense out, which I think still helps Brock Purdy. But if he's not effective, that definitely diminishes what they can do on offense. McCaffrey seems to be a little bit dinged up. So what is this offense going to look like?
Get some Juwan Jennings
the 22-point implied total for the Lions doesn't shock me just because of how good the 49ers defense is. It's going to make it more difficult for the Lions to move the ball. I'm nervous about Jared Goff, 2 straight turnover-free games.
That means
you already know you hate due. Eric hates due, but he feels due for a turnover game. He's also 0-5 against the 49ers, so maybe he's due for a win against the 49ers, or he's lost 5 in a row against the 49ers. Maybe he's due to win against the 49ers.
So maybe he'll have multiple turnovers but still win. There you go.
It could happen, and I will be about 10 years older if that happens.
Oh. But I saw him recover from the last time the Ravens won a divisional round game.
Last week.
The time before that.
This is such an interesting game because there are some people who I've seen trying to say that the Lions are built to beat the 49ers, and I think that that's a bunch of hogwash. Like,
is anybody built to beat the 49ers?
Exactly.
The Ravens are just because they're really good. But there's not,
and they did beat the 49ers, but
they clubbed them.
Yeah.
I think that the only teams that are designed to beat the 49ers are the ones that actually have better personnel overall. Like this idea of, we got the secret sauce. There's no secret sauce. They're good at everything. Yeah. The only thing that they don't have is their secondary is beatable. I think the Lions, if they can protect Jared Goff, they should be able to move the ball in the air against them.
I look at the Lions offense and they feel in some ways like 49ers light. Jahmyr Gibbs is like Christian McCaffrey light.
Jahmyr Gibbs is good, man.
He's really good, but I feel like he's Christian McCaffrey light. Amon-Ra St. Brown, really good. Deebo Samuel light.
I don't think he plays the same style.
Is anybody Deebo Samuel
light? He plays pretty similar
light?
style. He doesn't run the ball as much as Deebo, but the Lions do use him in those end around sweeps.
Okay,
they don't line him up in the backfield the way the 49ers do with Deebo sometimes, but they definitely run very similar styles. They run similar kinds of routes.
I actually think Amon-Ra is a better route runner than Deebo. Deebo's just a freak of nature once he gets the ball in his hands.
So is Amon-Ra.
Yeah, but Deebo Samuel is both a guy who can
He's
turn
both large and in charge.
He can squeeze through a hole, and then if he can't, he'll run you over.
I'm not convinced that Amon-Ra can't run people over. I mean, did you see that one catch where he somehow managed to keep his balance and push himself forward to get it across the line for the first down?
I just think they're different players.
I feel like they're different.
Yeah. Amon-Ra's great.
They're different people. I think they're very similar players.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
You got Sam Laporta versus George Kittle. I think that George Kittle has more experience, but Sam Laporta. Laporta's a dude.
Yeah.
Sam Laporta's
He's got one good leg.
Yeah, he's dealing with a bit of an injury as well, and he looked fine in the wild card. He looked fine this week, and he's going to be even more comfortable next week, hopefully. So
Aiden Hutchinson is Nick Bosa light.
Aiden Hutchinson is Nick Bosa light. He's not quite that level, but he's a guy that could get to that level.
He definitely is.
Yes, that's true. But you don't necessarily have to be the smartest guy to hit people really hard on defense.
Clearly, Nick Bosa is an all-pro, and he's dumb as a stump.
Yeah.
So
But that's about But that's about where I'm going to stop the comparisons. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try and say that, like, Barnes is Fred Warner light, because no, like, true. Fred Warner is a freaking...
Fred Warner is an all-pro, and Barnes is just a guy.
Yeah, who somehow managed to get a game securing interception at the end of the game.
That's the only reason I know
you got
Alex Anzalone.
You got Deion Branch, who's a pretty solid cornerback for us.
Deion Branch.
He's the one who wears the green...
His name's Deion Branch.
Sorry,
like
not Deion Branch. Brian Branch. Brian. Brian Branch.
Nice. He's the MVP Deion Branch to you.
He keeps the green mouthpiece in his helmet instead of in his mouth.
Nice.
What?
Yeah.
Like during the play?
Yeah.
Why?
He has I think he has a second one that he doesn't even keep that in his mouth. He lets it hang off of his face mask. He doesn't.
So it's just globs of drool dripping down.
One in his mouth while he's playing.
And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson Jr. has never stolen one from him in practice. Like, come on, come on now.
And then you got freaking Kirby Joseph, who just drives me nuts. He had another boneheaded play this past week.
I couldn't tell you who that is.
He's number 31.
A team that's good that I have to pay attention to all 53 guys. Like, I could probably name you 20 Saints. I don't know if I can name you more than that.
I don't know if I can name 20.
Don't test me.
Could I name 20 Lions?
You just named some guy named Curry Joseph. Did you say Curry or Corey?
Kirby.
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 Okay,
Why?
It's not like curry, like chicken curry. Curry stew.
No. He's the one who rips the Rams player off of the pile last week and then continued the tackle out of bounds. He had another boneheaded play this past week. So,
jeez.
The secondary is going to have to be a really big focal point for us on defense next year, along with the interior defensive line. Again, I wanted a defensive tackle, first round last year. At this point, they made the right decision on Jahmyr Gibbs, absolutely, but we still need to address those issues this coming off season.
Where's Nick Fairley when you need him?
Talking about this week.
Call him. He's available.
I would go Lions where the line is right now, because I think that we're going to keep it close, particularly if Deebo Samuel is hurt and out or hurt and limited. I'm curious to hear where you guys are at with this game.
I think Lions, just because it's more fun, is to have a close game. That's it.
I think 7's a lot for the 49ers, who have not looked their best and are injured. I mean, Jared Goff is, he's won 5 playoff games now. Like I said, he's won more playoff games than Matthew Stafford.
And more than Mark Sanchez.
Yeah. He's also made more Pro Bowls than Matthew Stafford.
I find that hard to believe, but,
it's true.
It's true.
Stafford's made 2 Pro Bowls his whole career.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just saying.
Jared Goff's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
People got to give him his due.
Yeah.
Goff played like the number 1 pick this postseason.
Yeah.
Like...
he's played like the number 1 pick since halfway through the 2021 season.
Yeah, he's been good.
I mean, his first year, he looked like he was going to be the biggest bust of all time.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff Fisher.
He was looking like he was going to top David Carr for like just the worst season of all time. He's lucky he only played like 9 games. He was so bad.
It was
that Rams
indescribably terrible.
Putrid.
I don't get
that. Was their last season in St. Louis, wasn't it?
No, that was their first in LA.
Okay. And then they got McVay, and suddenly Goff becomes like a top 5 quarterback that year.
Had one of the most exciting regular season games ever against Kansas City down in
next year, but yeah.
Well, right, but that was still like him and McVay, and that was like that was really when he started turning it on. Like, he had a solid first season with McVay, but he that was like down the stretch. It was like the last 4 or 5 games of the season.
I know.
He started playing really well.
I remember. Yes. Came into the Superdome when they're all freaking out, making all this noise, and he outplayed Drew Brees. I remember.
That's not hard to do.
Brees is a pretty good playoff quarterback.
Yes. Yeah. He won a Super Bowl. Half as many as Peyton Manning, half as many as Eli Manning.
That's all true.
Same number as Aaron Rodgers.
That's also true.
Joe Flacco,
People here saying, it's an overreaction to say that Jordan Love's going to win more Super Bowls than Aaron Rodgers. Well, Aaron's only got 1, so
it's still an overreaction for a guy to predict that somebody's going to win 2 Super Bowls in their career. That's kind of a lot. It's
hard, especially when you're dealing with
hard enough to win
Mahomes
1
for a good portion of your career.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes feels like he should have won all the Super Bowls, and he's only won 2 out of 5, and I don't think he's winning this year. So
yeah, it's really hard to win a Super Bowl.
It's kind of hard.
Yeah. Good.
We already know that
even
he's not
Tom
Brady
win
went
like 10 years without.
We already know he's not going to win this year because it's already been scripted. It's going to be Ravens over 49ers in the Super Bowl
because of the logo.
Because of the colors, and the color that's below the other color always wins.
Oh. Okay.
It sounds like a bunch of nonsense, but okay.
So why couldn't it have been the Vikings over?
It could have been, but the Vikings aren't there.
Patriots.
It's like how Neville Longbottom could have been the chosen one, but he wasn't.
Oh, okay.
It could have been Vikings over Chiefs.
Okay.
But the Vikings aren't.
I believe that over the Chiefs. Yeah.
I think it's time to go.
Yeah, I think it is time to go. We're
we-
about 2 hours into the show.
Once we start doing McDonough's, it's time to wrap it up.
Oh my goodness. All right. So there's our thoughts on the upcoming games. We'll get official picks with the 5 o'clock Wednesday spreads on our website tomorrow evening. We'll also send out the ballots with the picks for people to fill out tomorrow afternoon. If you have not participated at this point, but you'd like to start now, you still can. And you can compete with us for this week. Just let us know your email address and you'll receive that ballot sometime tomorrow shortly after 5 o'clock. This has been episode 268 of the Sports Ballers podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We had some internet connectivity issues, so I think that we are no longer connected to the YouTube stream. But,
nobody knows.
I don't think we had any listeners at the time, so not the end of the world this week.
A tree falls in the forest and nobody's
to us. Really?
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Not live always. It depends. It's a Tuesday. It's off our normal schedule. Right now, clearly you're listening on Apple or Spotify or Google or Amazon. So if we are missing a podcatcher that you prefer, let us know and we'll look into getting on there. You can follow us on Twitter at SportsBallers18. My handle is at Corey Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67. Evan is at Evan_Ash13. You can also email us, thesportsballers@gmail.com, if you have mailbag questions or other topics you would like to hear us discuss. Before we get out of here, any shout-outs this week?
Yeah, I got a sort of a sarcastic shout-out. Shout-out to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who had a rare but always funny moment where they scored on themselves on a delayed penalty. And for those who are not hockey inclined, which I imagine is both of you, don't understand what the hell I'm talking about.
No, I know what a delayed penalty is, though.
Okay, for the Evan's sake.
don't know.
So, in hockey, if somebody commits a penalty, the ref sticks his hand up or his arm up in the air to signify that a penalty is being called. Mm-hmm. But they don't stop play immediately. If the team that's controlling the puck was the team that was fouled, they're allowed to continue play until the other team touches the puck up. So
like in basketball with the continuation on the shooting foul or whatever?
But it can go on for minutes at a time.
Yeah, depending on how long the offense controls the puck.
Yeah, okay. So the typical move at that point is, since the other team can't control the puck, once they do, the play's blown dead, you pull your goalie out and you add a sixth man on the ice for your offense, so you're playing 6-on-5. And so the Penguins did that. The problem is, if you accidentally fumble with the puck, or if you turn it over, whatever, they touch the puck, it's over. If you knock it into your own net, it's a goal for the other team.
Ooh.
And that's what happened. So
even an own goal in soccer, like the goalie's still there on the field somewhere.
Yes.
But like you knocked it in your own goal unattended.
In hockey, where the goal's like 3 feet wide.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's bad.
Pretty hilarious.
It is, and especially happening to the Penguins because I hate them. So
I don't like them either.
Just wanted to bring that up. That was nice.
Any shout-outs for you, Evan?
No, because I never remember to think of any. I'm sure there's somebody who deserves to be shouted out.
I literally just saw this on Twitter like an hour ago, and I wrote Penguins. So.
I'm just going to shout out Mother Nature for the snow. It was kind of nice for a change to actually get some snow. We hadn't had this much snow like the last 5 years combined, and like it got me out of school for a couple of days last week. And then it's a love-hate, because on one hand I prefer the snow when it gets me out of like real school, and that was a week where we didn't have classes. We had the DeMatha experience, so those were days that I was looking forward to. I would have preferred to get out of school on days where I have to teach, but it's nice, and it's nice to look at. I'm gonna be a little bit disappointed when we have this gross rain on Thursday, and it's gonna be warm but wet, and it's just gonna melt it all and turn into mud. It's gonna be
good.
Ugh.
Get the snow out of here.
I hate it.
Oh, I hate it so much. Terrible, terrible, terrible. No more snow ever.
I like looking at it.
Right? Like, what?
Snow was really pretty on Friday. It's fun to watch.
I went to work and it was not pretty.
I'm so tired of these goofballs who haven't cleared off the top of their cars yet.
Well, yes, that drives me nuts.
It's Tuesday. Like, it snowed Friday. Like, what are y'all doing?
You should not be driving out there until you've cleared that off at all.
Yes.
It's a hazard.
Your car should be cleared off on Friday if it snows on Friday.
So, I agree with that. Like, stop leaving snow on the top of your roof. I'm pretty sure it's illegal.
It is. Can't do that.
Yeah, let's not do that. All right, let's get out of here. Thank you so much for listening. For Eric, for Evan, appreciate it. This has been the Sports Bars Podcast, episode 268. I'm Corey, and we will see you all next week. Take care.